She was transmigrated as the most esteemed little princess of the empire, yet she only wanted to be a commoner who farms. Today was the spirit summoning ceremony that all direct members of the imperial family had to attend. In this world, everyone has a chance to have their own spirit. After arriving at the temple, Tasha prayed with utmost sincerity in her heart for an ordinary spirit. Unfortunately, her wish was not granted. What appeared before her was clearly an SS2 level spirit, and it even had a physical form. You see, most people's spirits do not have a physical form. A powerful spirit like this would probably cause a sensation throughout the entire empire if it were revealed. Tasha was completely petrified. She just wanted to be a commoner who farms. Why was it so difficult? If people outside found out about such a rare spirit, they would definitely force her to stay in the palace. The reason Tasha was so unwilling to stay in the imperial palace was that she had been transmigrated into a novel as the villainess. The male lead of the novel was her cousin, who was also the current crown prince. Tasha had ambitions for the throne, thus becoming a stumbling block for the male lead. In this world, the person who forms a contract with the strongest spirit is very likely to become the next emperor. But if the spirit is too ordinary, they can only be driven out of the palace. The Tasha in the novel summoned a rare spirit during this ceremony, which was how she gained the right to the throne. From then on, she began her path as a reckless and unscrupulous villainess, and was eventually killed by her cousin, the crown prince. Looking at the rare spirit before her, Tasha showed a look of rejection. The spirit seemed to sense Tasha's predicament, and immediately transformed into a little chick. Tasha was shocked. Spirits could actually transform? Although it was already very small, it wasn't small enough. Tasha tried to ask the spirit if it could turn into something like a brooch or a button. The spirit thought for a moment and obediently turned into a button. Tasha breathed a sigh of relief. This way, she could be kicked out of the imperial palace to go farm. When Tasha walked out of the spirit temple, the priest asked her, as usual, what her spirit was. Tasha played dumb, saying she didn't know anything and hadn't felt any spiritual power. The priest told her not to worry, and that he could take her to Marquis Jiefu for a consultation. The Marquis could identify spirits. No matter what kind of spirit it was, it could be identified. Tasha felt like this was bad. Wouldn't she be exposed? With stiff steps, she followed the priest to Marquis Jiefu. The Marquis greeted her warmly. Then, he placed his hand on Tasha's head. Tasha had an expression of facing death with equanimity. After a moment, the Marquis's eyes suddenly widened, and he looked at Tasha in shock. The little princess wanted to hide the fact that she had formed a contract with an SS2 level Phoenix spirit. She just wanted to leave the palace and be an ordinary commoner, but now she felt she couldn't hide it anymore. Marquis Jiefu could identify anyone's spirit. Tasha closed her eyes in despair. The Marquis had clearly detected something, but he just dotingly patted Tasha's head and said, "The little princess's spirit is a cute little bird. It suits you well." Tasha was a bit stunned. Didn't the Marquis have the ability to identify spirits? Could it be that he couldn't identify hers? The Marquis noticed Tasha's gaze and smiled, winking at her. Tasha wasn't sure if the Marquis was helping her or if she had just gotten lucky. With this plain identification result, her spirit didn't attract anyone's attention. She breathed a sigh of relief. Now she could leave the palace and go farm in peace. Just then, the emperor, her grandfather, suddenly walked in. He questioned each child present one by one. Tasha's heart began to pound with fear again. Soon, the emperor stood in front of her. Tasha nervously raised her head and glanced at him. This glance scared her half to death again. But the emperor just asked an attendant beside him in confusion, "How old is she again?" Upon learning Tasha was 10, the emperor found it incredible so small and thin. She looks like she's 6. Tasha lowered her head and pouted in dissatisfaction. Her father was once a crown prince, but for some reason, he voluntarily gave up the title of crown prince, just to live in seclusion in the mountains as a commoner who farms. He was only found by her grandfather, the emperor, a few days ago. It was also at that time that she realized she had transmigrated into the world of a novel. All these years, she hadn't grown tall because of poor nutrition, but she really loved the life of farming with her parents in this world. This time, her parents didn't come to the palace with her. They just sent her here to attend the spirit ceremony. Tasha was determined to find a way to go home after it was over. At this moment, her grandfather, the emperor, asked Tasha what her plans were after the ceremony. Tasha replied without hesitation that she wanted to go home and farm. The emperor's expression was a little surprised by this answer. Then he lowered his eyes in disappointment. Without saying anything, he turned and left, leaving Tasha standing there completely baffled. Was that it? So she could go home this time, right? That night, Tasha was preparing to sleep peacefully. A maid said she still had to be busy in the kitchen. She told Princess Tasha to ring the bell if she needed anything. Tasha curiously asked her what she had to be busy with so late. The maid told Tasha that the Empire's war had just ended, and His Majesty was about to hold a victory banquet. At that time, the famous consort Dowager Carlos would also be there. Tasha instantly shot up from the bed in shock. Wasn't Kano the wife of the male lead, the crown prince? In the novel, Kano tortured Princess Tasha in countless ways, ultimately speeding up Tasha's death. Recalling the novel's plot, Tasha hugged her pillow in fear. She had to leave the palace quickly, no matter what. Suddenly, the spirit, which had turned into a little chick, ran out from under the covers. It flapped its wings, tugged at Tasha's clothes, and led her out of the room. Tasha didn't want to cause any extra trouble, but seeing how anxious the spirit was, she could only follow it. In the end, the spirit led Tasha to the kitchen. It stopped on a brick-like object. Tasha went closer and saw that it was actually chocolate. Next to it was some kind of white ingredient. Tasha put it in her mouth and tasted it at once. It was sugar obtained by drying the syrup extracted from high-quality sugarcane. It must be very expensive. Tasha suddenly froze. Why had her sense of taste suddenly become so sensitive today? It was like she had a cheat ability, able to accurately identify the origin of food. The little princess who only wanted to escape the palace and be an ordinary commoner discovered that she had unknowingly acquired a whole set of cheat abilities. First, she had unintentionally formed a contract with a rare spirit. Then, she could see the mood colors on everyone. Most importantly, she was a pastry chef in her past life. In this life, after trying her hand in the palace kitchen, she found that the desserts she made were 100 times more delicious than in her previous life. And people who ate her desserts would become very happy. At this moment, Tasha was stepping into the palace kitchen for the first time, dragged in by the spirit that had turned into a little chick. The spirit flapped its wings, telling Tasha to use these ingredients to make a cake. Of course, Tasha refused outright. She couldn't afford to cause extra trouble now. She just wanted to leave the palace peacefully. The spirit put on a pitiful expression. Tasha's heart immediately softened, and she compromised. She comforted herself. Anyway, the people in the palace are all busy preparing for the banquet. No one should come here. She began to work with the ingredients at ease. The head chef suddenly appeared behind Tasha, asking with a fierce expression what she was doing in the kitchen. Tasha was so scared, she almost lost her shape. The head chef didn't know Tasha was a princess. Burning with anger, he told Tasha to get out of the kitchen immediately. The little chick fiercely knocked the head chef away. Under the little chick's gentle persuasion, the head chef suppressed his dissatisfaction and told Tasha to leave with her pet. But Tasha said with a smile that she wouldn't unless he let her make a cake here. Under the little chick's threat, the head chef could only compromise and agree. Tasha discovered that the head chef actually didn't know the use of chocolate. The head chef told Tasha that it was a treasure presented as tribute by a baron. He found it bitter and disgusting, but couldn't just throw it away, so it had been sitting here ever since. Tasha was speechless. Today, she would let the head chef know the deliciousness of chocolate. After pouring the prepared ingredients into the mold, Tasha suddenly remembered she had forgotten to preheat the oven. The head chef smugly told her not to worry. The palace's oven was on 24 hours a day. The outside of the oven was an inlaid panel made of crystal stones, and the temperature could be adjusted at any time. Tasha was relieved. In no time, the chocolate cake was successfully baked. She enthusiastically invited the head chef to try it. After the head chef took a scoop, he saw that the inside of the cake was very gooey. He asked with disgust, "How do you eat this?" Tasha ignored the head chef. She first took a bite herself. Oh my god, how is it so delicious? This was 100 times more delicious than the desserts she made in her past life. Could it be that her cooking skills had really leveled up? After the head chef took a bite, he showed an expression of immense satisfaction. It was as if he was tasting such a delicious food for the first time. His eyes sparkled with immense happiness. Tasha felt like she was hallucinating. She saw fireworks blooming around the head chef. She shook her head, shaking off the unrealistic thought. She asked the head chef if he had any oranges. Tasha told him that oranges could make the cake even more delicious. Without a second word, the head chef immediately took Tasha and ran to the cold storage to get oranges. After a while, the kitchen door was suddenly and violently thrown open. An attendant anxiously informed the head chef that His Majesty wanted dessert, but the kitchen was empty. He suddenly noticed 4 beautifully arranged desserts on the table. Smiling, he placed them on a plate, as expected of the head chef, so reliable. He already prepared the desserts. The attendant left the kitchen, humming a tune. At this time, the emperor was discussing official business with the crown prince. The two were clearly not having a pleasant conversation. The atmosphere quickly grew tense. Just then, the attendant walked in, pushing a cart with the cakes. He respectfully presented the cakes to the emperor and the crown prince. The emperor was a little puzzled. It was the first time he had seen such a strange cake. The two of them took a bite. The commoner little princess who had been living outside, having only been found by the imperial family a few days ago, was about to be demoted back to a commoner by her grandfather, the emperor, for doing something wrong. The reason was that the little princess, Tasha, had casually made 4 chocolate cakes in the kitchen, which were mistakenly taken by an attendant as the head chef's dessert and served to the emperor and the crown prince. Tasha, who now knew the truth, was on the verge of a breakdown. The attendant said that after eating the dessert, the emperor had requested to see the head chef. Tasha was worried the head chef would be punished for this, so she immediately admitted that she made the cake. Only then did the attendant realize he had taken the wrong dessert. The two of them walked with stiff steps towards the emperor's office. Tasha had a premonition that this time she would definitely be kicked out of the palace by her grandfather, the emperor, to go farm. Of course, this was also what she wished for. She didn't want to stay in the palace at all. She was just afraid she might be thrown into the dungeon. After arriving nervously at the office, the emperor glanced at Tasha and asked the attendant in confusion why he had brought her. Before the attendant could explain, he turned his expressionless gaze back to the book in his hands. Tasha spoke up directly. I made that cake because I wanted to make it for your majesty. The emperor's hand holding the book paused. Only then did he look up and seriously size up Tasha. Tasha had an expression of facing death with equanimity. I was the one who insisted on using the head chef's kitchen. I made it with great care. I wanted to make something for you before I leave. The emperor didn't seem to intend to blame Tasha. He curiously asked Tasha where she learned to make desserts. Tasha noticed that the cake on the table seemed to have been finished by His Majesty. She finally calmed down. She explained to the emperor that there was a dessert tutorial book at home, and she would occasionally read it. The emperor rested his chin on his hand and thought for a moment. In that instant, Tasha saw an apricot-colored aura emanating from him. So the aura she saw on the head chef earlier wasn't a hallucination. The emperor closed the book and said he couldn't eat Tasha's dessert for free. He would send Tasha a reward in a few days. Tasha repeatedly refused. In 2 days, she was going home to farm. She didn't want to stay in this palace. Suddenly, she froze. There seemed to be something transparent moving on the emperor. This thing even floated to her side. The emperor had the attendant take Tasha away, adding that if she didn't like the reward, she didn't have to accept it. As she was let out the door, Tasha was still a bit dazed. What was that just now? Inside the room, after the two had left, the emperor stood up and called out Shamo. The transparent spirit responded. The emperor asked in confusion if Tasha had seen him. The spirit nodded nonchalantly. However, this is the first time I've seen someone who cares so little about you. That little girl seems to only care if her dessert tastes good, not what reward she gets from you. She's probably more concerned about when she can go home. The emperor couldn't deny this point. He had to admit, Tasha was very much like her father. The emperor told the spirit that Tasha seemed to have formed a contract with a little bird spirit. The spirit curiously asked who said that. The emperor told him it was Marquis Nye Jiefu who identified it. Nye Jiefu was the emperor's third son. The spirit chuckled, "Got a little bird. It does resemble one a bit. However, your Nye Jiefu seems to be very fond of that Tasha." Back in her room, Tasha felt incredibly exhausted. She still had to wait for His Majesty's reward before she could go home to farm. She couldn't help but stand up and complain to the spirit, which had turned back into a button that it shouldn't have taken her to the kitchen. Suddenly, a voice was heard. "Clearly, you were the one who wanted to make a molten chocolate cake." Tasha jumped at who's there. After a long while, the voice was gone. She was a bit confused. Was she hearing things? The spirit changed back into a little chick and told her she wasn't hearing things. It proudly introduced itself to Tasha. "I'm a perception spirit, you idiot. What is it like to be with the person who will kill you in the future every day?" Little Princess Tasha's heart was heavy. She originally wanted to escape the novel's plot, flee the palace, and be an ordinary commoner. But she was ordered by the emperor to stay in the palace and study with the crown prince every day. Tasha was 100% unwilling. She knew that her ending in the novel was to be killed by this cousin of hers. But she couldn't defy the emperor's order. On the first day of class, Tasha walked into the classroom with stiff steps. Entering the room, she saw the crown prince standing by the window, reading a book. Tasha curtsied and called out, "Your Highness, the crown prince." The crown prince, without turning his head, told her not to be nervous. With her back to the crown prince, Tasha secretly complained, "How can I not be nervous? This is the person who will kill me in the future." Before long, the teacher came in to start the lesson for the two of them. After a full day of classes, Tasha returned to her room and lay exhausted on the bed. During class today, the crown prince didn't spare her a single glance. His attitude was very cold. She really didn't understand why the emperor wanted to keep her in the palace. Since she couldn't escape, she could only find a way to get on good terms with the crown prince. But how exactly could she raise his favorability? Tasha suddenly remembered her dessert-making skills. With the spirit's blessing, they were 100 times more delicious than in her previous life. She immediately ran to the kitchen and discussed with the head chef about making another dessert. Ever since the head chef ate the cake Tasha made last time, he had been deeply impressed. He friendly told her to use the kitchen as she pleased. Tasha thought for a moment and decided to make pastries that could serve as a meal replacement. With the help of her cheat-like spirit, the pastries were quickly made. The head chef took one out to try. Tasha saw the happy aura radiating from the head chef again. Relieved, she packed the food and went to find the crown prince. But when she arrived at the Crown Prince's room, she knocked for a long time, but no one answered. Tasha decided she wouldn't come again. But she came 4 times, and no one was there. She felt a bit melancholic. Was this favorability doomed to never increase? Suddenly, a knight walked over and asked if he could help her. Tasha had seen this knight during class in the daytime. He was the Crown Prince's guard. Tasha requested to see the Crown Prince. The knight stated that His Highness was studying diligently and that he could relay any message. Tasha could only take out the packed pastries and asked him to pass them to the Crown Prince to try. The knight dutifully took the pastries to the busy Crown Prince. He respectfully stated that Her Highness Tasha had asked him to deliver them. After opening the package, the Crown Prince, who was used to eating delicacies, was stunned to see such simple and unadorned pastries. Just this. He looked resigned as he prepared to try it. The knight immediately took out a silver needle to test for poison. Looking at the golden, crispy pastry, the Crown Prince fell into deep thought. After he formed a contract with the fire spirit in his childhood, everyone's eyes were filled with terror, suspicion, and jealousy when they looked at him. But Tasha's eyes were like a kitten that had seen a puddle of water. After the test showed no problems, the Crown Prince picked up the pastry. The knight told the Crown Prince that Tasha seemed to have come by 4 times today. The Crown Prince couldn't help but feel puzzled. She came 4 times just to give him this? Was Tasha trying to curry favor with him? But if she was, shouldn't she have brought something more valuable? The Crown Prince took a small bite of the pastry. His eyes widened in shock. A blissful and incredulous expression appeared on his face. The cousin, the Crown Prince, who had once been indifferent to the little princess, turned into a doting brother with a sister complex within a day. Today, Tasha brought her freshly made dessert to find the Crown Prince. Just as she was about to knock, the door was immediately opened. The Crown Prince appeared at the door with a wide smile and greeted Tasha. Tasha was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. She remembered that when she came yesterday, she knocked 4 times and no one answered. Now the Crown Prince was personally opening the door for her. She had only fed him dessert once. She estimated his favorability had risen by at least 80%. Tasha handed the dessert to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince showed a brilliant smile and he thanked Tasha. But Tasha felt that his smile was inexplicably fake. The next day, Tasha accompanied the Crown Prince to his swordsmanship class. Seeing that Tasha was bored, the Crown Prince told her to come over and practice archery. But Tasha even struggled to draw the bow. The Crown Prince teased her for a bit. After a while, the Crown Prince caringly asked Tasha if she felt hot. Because of his contract with the fire spirit, which he couldn't fully control yet, the entire palace was 1 degree hotter than the outside. In fact, the closer one got to him, the hotter it would feel. This was also why so many people stayed away from him and even detested him. Tasha immediately said she wasn't hot at all. The Crown Prince was a little puzzled. This was the first time someone stood next to him without complaining about the heat. The little chick spirit hiding by Tasha's side interjected in her mind, "That's because I'm cooling you down. I'm much more powerful than his fire spirit." Tasha quickly told it to shut up. If others found out how powerful her spirit was, she would be pushed onto the throne, directly becoming an enemy of the novel's male lead. The Crown Prince. Having worked so hard to raise the Crown Prince's favorability, Tasha didn't want to waste all her efforts. She planned to think of a more perfect answer to reassure the Crown Prince that his spirit wasn't bothering others with its heat. Tasha raised her face with a smile and told the Crown Prince earnestly, "That's because your fire spirit would definitely not harm an ally." It was the first time the Crown Prince had heard such an answer. He was stunned for a moment, then covered his mouth, trying to suppress a laugh. Tasha immediately moved closer and told him not to cover his face when he laughed. The Crown Prince kept his face covered and told her to stop messing around. Tasha playfully shook the Crown Prince's sleeve. The Crown Prince shook off his sleeve and shouted impatiently, "I said, stop messing around." Tasha, who was thrown to the ground, was stunned. The Crown Prince's expression was even more shocked than hers. Then, a sad emotion appeared in his eyes, as if he was about to cry. Tasha quickly asked him what was wrong. The Crown Prince turned around, apologized to Tasha, and left. Tasha chased after him, grabbed his hand, and persistently asked why he was angry. The Crown Prince could only tell Tasha his troubles. It turned out that after the Crown Prince contracted with the fire spirit, he couldn't control it proficiently, so he had to keep his emotions stable at all times. He couldn't laugh out loud, cry hard, or get angry. He apologized to Tasha again and left. Tasha was frozen in place. The little chick, who had heard everything, jumped out and said with disdain that the Crown Prince, that little brat, was overthinking things. It told Tasha that it was entirely because the fire spirit's own temperament was unstable. Even if the Crown Prince cried or laughed out loud, nothing would happen. Tasha, learning the truth, immediately rushed in the Crown Prince's direction. As a noble Crown Prince, the other imperial children of his age avoided him like a monster. Just because he had contracted with a powerful fire spirit, he couldn't cry, couldn't laugh, and certainly couldn't get angry. He had no friends growing up until he met his cousin who had been living outside and was only recently found. The Crown Prince was sitting in his room, thinking about something. His cousin, Tasha, came looking for him, panting. Seeing that she seemed to have something to say, the Crown Prince dismissed the attendants. After only the two of them were left in the room, Tasha loudly told the Crown Prince, "The one who can't control its emotions is the fire spirit, not you." The Crown Prince was stunned. Tasha continued, telling him that if his ability was insufficient, the fire spirit wouldn't have contracted with him in the first place. But the Crown Prince explained that it was because he had begged and pleaded back then that the fire spirit chose him. Tasha loudly retorted, "Among so many people, the fact that you could contract with the fire spirit proves that your ability is outstanding. But why can't you be angry? Why can't you laugh happily? You just got angry at me and nothing happened. The one who can't control itself is the fire spirit, not you. It doesn't matter if you get angry or laugh out loud." The Crown Prince, however, lowered his eyes sorrowfully. Back then, his father, the Emperor, was the fire spirit's previous master. He passed away because of the fire spirit. For a moment, Tasha saw a blue aura emanating from around the Crown Prince. She guessed this color must represent sadness. The Crown Prince told Tasha that his father was a person of great emotional fluctuations. When he was 5 years old, his father passed away unexpectedly because he couldn't control the fire spirit's power. Tasha, who knew the plot of the novel, couldn't tell the Crown Prince the real cause of his father, Nicola's death. It was actually because the Emperor at the time tried to make Tasha's father the Crown Prince. After hearing this news, Nicola threw himself into a blazing fire not long after. And so, Tasha's father also ran away from home. As for Nicola's son, after the Emperor arranged for him to form a contract with the fire spirit, he was made the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince had always believed his father's death was due to his inability to control his emotions. That's why he had always suppressed his own feelings. Tasha strode towards the Crown Prince. She told him resolutely and seriously, "You are you. You're not the same as my uncle. You won't repeat his fate." The Crown Prince was still struggling. Ever since he formed the contract with the fire spirit, the palace had been constantly hot. Tasha stomped her foot in frustration. Why is this child so hard to persuade? That's because the fire spirit is too excited. It's happy about forming a contract with you. The expression on the Crown Prince's face finally broke. Large teardrops fell from his eyes, while he stubbornly said, "I shouldn't be crying." Tasha walked forward and hugged the Crown Prince tightly. She continuously comforted him. It's okay to cry or laugh, or even get angry. So just go ahead and cry your heart out. Hearing these words, the Crown Prince's tears fell even more fiercely. She had transmigrated into the novel as the male lead's villainous sister. Originally, she wanted to escape, but she felt soft-hearted towards this brother with an unfortunate childhood, especially since the male lead, the Crown Prince, had fallen ill these past 2 days. Tasha came to visit him out of concern. This child probably wore himself out from the drastic emotional ups and downs a few days ago. Suddenly, a strange voice echoed in her mind. What should I do? It startled Tasha. The knight behind her asked in confusion what was wrong. Tasha dazedly reassured him that it was nothing. After the knight left, she turned her head to look at the candlelight nearby. Could it be this that's talking? Before she could ask anything, the little chick angrily jumped out and roared at the candlelight. "Don't you dare casually talk to my contractor." The fire spirit, with a mournful face, asked the little chick to help check on the Crown Prince. It couldn't bear to see its child suffering so much. Tasha was a bit puzzled. The fire spirit hadn't contracted with her, so why could she hear its voice? The fire spirit explained that as long as she could still perceive the existence of spirits, she could communicate with all spirits without barriers. The little chick jealously told the fire spirit not to talk to its chick. The fire spirit started arguing with it. In a fit of anger, the little chick directly covered the flame with its wing. The fire spirit actually disappeared. Tasha was stunned. She comforted the little chick a bit. Then she relit the candle. The fire spirit appeared, hanging its head aggrievedly. It was still too small to win against the little chick. Tasha told the fire spirit to apologize to her brother, the Crown Prince, later. Because it was always losing control, it caused trouble for the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince often blamed himself for this, not daring to cry or laugh ever since the contract. The fire spirit immediately agreed. While the Crown Prince was still fast asleep, Tasha went to the kitchen to make him some porridge. When she returned, the Crown Prince had just woken up. She quickly brought out the porridge. Worried that her brother's body was too weak, Tasha took a firm stance and held out a spoon to feed him. The Crown Prince could only compromise helplessly. He felt as if Tasha was treating him like a small child. After finishing the porridge, Tasha urged the Crown Prince to lie down and rest quickly. She flashed a brilliant smile and said goodnight to the Crown Prince. The next day, the Crown Prince woke up feeling much better. It had been a long time since he had been so seriously ill. It had been a long time since anyone had come to take care of him. He wanted to get up, but suddenly discovered Tasha was actually slumped over by his bedside, asleep. Tasha heard the movement, sleepily rubbed her eyes, and asked the Crown Prince how his body felt. The Crown Prince was still in a state of shock and emotion. Tasha had actually been here all night, taking care of him. Seeing the Crown Prince in a daze, Tasha reached out and touched his forehead. She breathed breathed a sigh of relief only after confirming he was much better. As a crown prince, he had no one to care for him when he was sick. Waking up in the morning, he discovered that the sister he had only known for a few days had stayed by his bedside all night to care for him. The crown prince was incredibly moved. It was also because of this incident that he completely became doting on his sister from then on. Tasha yawned as she fed her brother some milk. After he finished, she again urged him to lie down and continue resting. Tasha suddenly thought of the fire spirit. She told her brother with a serious and solemn expression, "The palace is so hot because the fire spirit is really too excited. It's not your fault for not controlling your emotions." The crown prince just thought Tasha was teasing him again and squeezed out a cooperative smile. Tasha simply brought the candle directly to the crown prince's side and told the fire spirit to come out and apologize quickly. With tears in its eyes, the fire spirit earnestly apologized to the crown prince. But the crown prince said with a puzzled look, "Holding a candle and standing by the bed like that is very dangerous, you know?" The little chick laughed its head off. After all that, the crown prince couldn't hear it at all. Tasha, not giving up, asked her brother, "Did you really not hear what the fire spirit just said?" The crown prince's expression became even more bewildered. "Were you just talking to a spirit?" It was obvious he really couldn't hear. The fire spirit was streaming with tears. Tasha wondered how she could make her brother hear the spirit's voice. The little chick jumped out and told her, because she has the ability of perception, if she makes more food for the crown prince to eat, it can help him perceive spirits to a certain extent. The crown prince anxiously asked Tasha, what did the fire spirit say? Tasha could only relay the fire spirit's words. "It's apologizing to you. Its stubbornness caused the current hot weather in the palace and made you suffer so much. It says it will mend its ways in the future and won't be like this again." Hearing these words, the corners of the crown prince's mouth couldn't help but lift into a joyful smile. He spoke softly to the candlelight, saying that winter was coming soon, and asked the fire spirit to continue helping to warm the palace. The fire spirit excitedly indicated it was no problem. The flame on the candle shot up to twice its height. Tasha helplessly relayed the fire spirit's message to her brother. The crown prince asked Tasha in confusion why. He had never heard that she could talk to spirits. Tasha lowered her eyes and only spoke after a long while. Her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. "I didn't mean to hide it from you. It's just that no one seemed to care, so I didn't say anything." She hid this, of course, because she was afraid she would threaten her brother's position. Once her brother became wary of her, her only path would be to escape the palace. Tasha wanted to open her mouth to tell her brother that she had no interest in the throne at all, but she had just started speaking when the crown prince interrupted her. Seemingly sensing his sister had some unspoken difficulties, he intimately took Tasha's hand. A brilliant smile appeared on his face. "I understand what you mean. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Don't worry about anything else." Back in her own room, Tasha was still a little uncertain. The crown prince's reaction was a bit incredible. How could he believe me so easily? But as long as my brother doesn't misunderstand that I want to fight for the throne, it's fine. Today, the Empire held a grand victory banquet. The Empire's hero, Kano, returned triumphantly with his men. Tasha, who had read the novel, was very afraid of Kano. He was the male lead crown prince's confidant, and also the person in the novel who would make her life a living hell. At this moment, she was sitting obediently beside her brother, the crown prince, preparing to welcome Kano and his group, who were about to arrive at the hall. Suddenly, the sound of cheering came from outside the palace. Tasha was startled. The crown prince quickly shielded Tasha and asked with concern if she was okay. Tasha shook her head repeatedly. After all, her relationship with her brother, the crown prince, had advanced by leaps and bounds. The crown prince even let her call him by his nickname, Ollie. Tasha smiled and asked her brother to try calling her by her nickname, Tasha. The crown prince's face turned red, and he unnaturally averted his eyes. At Tasha's urging, he stammered out Tasha. Tasha just thought a brother like this was simply adorable. At that moment, the hall doors were suddenly opened. A group of people walked in. Tasha immediately noticed the black-haired, purple-eyed young man. The knights knelt and paid their respects to the emperor. The emperor rewarded each knight. On both sides of the knights stood the nobles who came to attend the victory banquet. The palace gardeners and chefs also gathered to see the triumphant heroes. The head chef, standing in the crowd, looked up and stared at Tasha in shock. Only then did he realize Tasha was actually a princess. Tasha gave an awkward laugh and waved at him. The emperor solemnly recited a blessing for the knights. After that, the reception ceremony was complete. Next was free time. Tasha wanted to take the opportunity to slip away. She guessed that her brother would probably talk to Kano alone next, so she planned to be tactful and go play somewhere else. As a result, while she was walking, her shoes suddenly came off. Seeing her body wobble unsteadily, she was about to fall. A hand reached out in time and caught her. It was her brother, the crown prince. The crown prince could tell at a glance that Tasha's shoes didn't seem to fit well. Tasha wanted to tell him not to worry about her, but her brother scooped her up in his arms. Tasha quickly told him to put her down. This was a victory banquet, after all. As the crown prince, he surely had many social obligations. But the crown prince just smiled gently. "You're hurt. I'll take you back." No matter what Tasha said, the crown prince wouldn't put her down. Suddenly, a blonde-haired man came over to greet the crown prince. The crown prince, however, dropped his smile and gave a couple of distant and cold cold, perfunctory replies. Tasha clearly sensed her brother's displeasure towards this person. The man drew closer to Tasha, smiling. "Little princess, this is the first time we've met, isn't it? I am your father's older brother, Baleli." Tasha's eyes widened in an instant. Isn't this the man from the novel who stirred up trouble around Tasha? The Crown Prince had only been with his cousin Tasha for less than half a month and had already become completely doting on his sister. Baleli heard the little princess Tasha intimately calling the Crown Prince by his nickname, Ali. He insinuated in a strange tone that Tasha was impolite and didn't understand etiquette or respect for status. The Crown Prince cut him off. "So-called royal etiquette and respect for status are things I need to observe when facing my grandfather, the Emperor. Of course, Marquis, you also need to observe etiquette in front of me. But Tasha doesn't need to bother with such things in front of me." Although Baleli was furious that the Crown Prince didn't give him face, he didn't dare to refute him. He could only grit his teeth in anger secretly. The Crown Prince didn't want to say any more to him either and left, carrying Tasha. Tasha was a little worried if she was too heavy. The Crown Prince immediately told her not to overthink it. "It'll be a long time before you're heavy." Then, the Crown Prince asked Tasha with dissatisfaction, "Did I interrupt your conversation with Marquis Baleli?" Tasha quickly explained, "Of course not. Didn't I say it before? I'm closest to you, Ali." The Crown Prince glanced away, trying hard to suppress the corners of his mouth from turning up. Finally, he couldn't hold it back anymore. A smug and brilliant smile appeared on his face. Tasha felt that compared to the cold look he gave Baleli earlier, his eyes now looked as if flower petals were fluttering within them. The Crown Prince carried Tasha and strode towards his chambers. Tasha leaned securely in her brother's arms. The next day, Tasha and her brother were sitting together, eating dessert and having afternoon tea. The Crown Prince curiously asked Tasha, "Are you really not planning to attend the victory ball tomorrow?" Tasha paused. After thinking for a while, she found some excuses. "There's no one I know at the ball. I feel like it probably won't be much fun if I go." The Crown Prince showed a gentle smile. "I can keep you company." Tasha still had a look of refusal on her face. The Crown Prince curiously asked, "Are you afraid of seeing something scary?" Tasha nodded frantically in her heart. Of course, there is something especially scary, and that's Kano. The door to the room was suddenly opened. Kano, with his black hair and purple eyes, walked in at that moment. Tasha showed a terrified expression. Why is it that the person she fears the most keeps appearing before her? Kano had originally opened his mouth to share something with the Crown Prince. Seeing Tasha's expression, his face immediately turned cold. His whole demeanor looked very grim. Tasha's heart leaped in her throat. Kano's gaze looked as if it could tear Tasha apart. The spirit suddenly, at this moment, told Tasha to go talk to Kano. Tasha, shocked and resistant, asked it why. Kano slowly walked towards the two of them, indicating he had something to report to the Crown Prince. The spirit continuously urged in Tasha's mind, "Hurry up and go chat with him. Hold his hand, hug him." Tasha felt the spirit had gone mad. Tasha, who had transmigrated into the novel, knew very well that the black-haired, purple-eyed Kano before her was the man who would torture her to the point of wishing for death in the future. But the spirit reminded her in her mind, "Hurry up and hug Kano." Has she gone mad, or has the spirit gone mad? Tasha accidentally met his purple gaze. The spirit shouted frantically, "What are you waiting for? Get up and hug him." Tasha chose to ignore the spirit's words. The Crown Prince got up and took Kano to the balcony to talk in private. Kano asked the Crown Prince, "What's the deal with that girl inside?" The Crown Prince explained that Tasha is his uncle's daughter, who was only recently brought into the palace. Kano then asked the Crown Prince if he liked her. The Crown Prince nodded without hesitation. "She is my only cousin, after all." But Kano had a different view. "Then does she also see you as her only cousin?" Even if she really thinks so, won't the people around her have other ideas? This meant he was worried someone would try to sow discord between Tasha and the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince's expression also grew serious. He asked Kano to stay by Tasha's side more often in the future to help deal with the troublesome people around her. This request made Kano feel helpless. Except for the Crown Prince and the Emperor, everyone was afraid of him. He estimated Tasha would probably be scared to tears if she saw him. The Crown Prince patted Kano's shoulder and told him not to worry. After the Crown Prince returned to the room, Kano, standing in place, had a complicated expression on his face. The Crown Prince's smiles were clearly more frequent than before. The Crown Prince, back inside the room, gave Tasha an apologetic smile for being away for so long. Kano didn't plan to stay long either. He came to the door, bid the two farewell, and left. The loud sound of the door closing made Tasha shiver. The Crown Prince, long accustomed to Kano's style, calmly poured tea. He comforted Tasha, telling her not to be afraid of Kano. He's not a bad person by nature. He just likes to worry unnecessarily. Tasha was speechless. Kano looked like a fierce demon king. The words worry unnecessarily didn't seem to fit him at all. Thinking of something, Tasha again expressed with a look of resistance that she would absolutely not go to the victory ball tomorrow. As a result, the next day, under the warm invitation of her brother, the Crown Prince, Tasha still put on a formal dress and, feigning reluctance, held her brother's hand to attend the banquet. Halfway there, the Crown Prince was urgently called away by a lady-in-waiting sent by the Emperor. Tasha could only arrive at the banquet alone. As soon as she entered, she attracted a lot of discussion. This was also the reason Tasha didn't want to come to the banquet. Her status was awkward. Her father was once a crown prince. Now she had returned and was kept in the palace by her grandfather, the emperor. It would definitely arouse people's speculation. They would either guess that her father wanted to come back and inherit the throne, or guess that she had designs on the throne. Tasha listlessly hung her head, staying alone in a corner. Kano took all of this in. He strode towards Tasha. The surrounding discussions suddenly all turned to Kano. Faint voices drifted to Tasha's ears. His arrival brings an ominous feeling with it. Quiet down. Don't let him hear you. But he's the triumphant hero. Only then did Tasha realize something was wrong. Why was everyone so afraid of Kano? The black-haired, purple-eyed man before her bowed to the little princess, Tasha, with a blank expression. Tasha's spirit screamed wildly in her mind. Here's your chance. Go hold his hand. Tasha speechlessly asked the spirit after holding his hand, do you want me to kiss Kano too? The spirit immediately replied, that would be even better. Tasha ignored the spirit's words, lifted her skirt, and also bowed to Kano. Afterwards, the two stood together awkwardly. Tasha couldn't understand why Kano didn't leave after greeting her and just stood there beside her. Tasha thought Kano wanted to ask about the crown prince. She put on a smile and told Kano, my brother was called away by his majesty. Tasha just felt awkward and uncomfortable all over. Just as she was trying to think of a way to escape, Kano spoke to her. These people around who want to get close to you all want to use you. I hope you can consider carefully and not be used by others. Tasha understood in an instant. Kano was standing beside her to drive others away from approaching her, to prevent her from coming into contact with troublesome people and causing trouble for the crown prince. Kano spoke again to remind her, and it would be best if you don't get too close to me either. Tasha instantly felt rebellious. She put on a big smile and declared that she wanted to be friends with Kano. Kano didn't expect Tasha to have this reaction. Just as he was about to say something, a noisy commotion came from a corner. Kano hurried over to handle it. After he left, Tasha shivered, hugging her arms, and complained, I thought I was going to freeze to death. Marquis Netjeff suddenly appeared behind Tasha and continued the conversation. Is that so? But it's very cold in the palace. Tasha was startled. Marquis Netjeff was the Marquis who had identified Tasha's spirit back then. He comfortingly patted Tasha's head. Seeing Tasha's resistant expression, he quickly apologized. I'm used to patting my son's head at home. The Marquis suddenly took out a pink hair ornament and placed it on Tasha's head. He said with a smile that this was an apology for messing up her hair just now, and that Tasha must accept it. Tasha touched the hair ornament and looked intently at the Marquis. The Marquis said he only had a son at home. So even though he said it was an apology, Tasha knew it was actually bought especially for her. After accepting the gift, the two chatted for a while. Tasha curiously asked the Marquis, did you really not identify her spirit back then? The Marquis cleared up Tasha's confusion. He had indeed identified Tasha's spirit as being very powerful. His intention in calling it a little bird spirit was to help Tasha fulfill her wish to go home. Who knew that his identification didn't affect Tasha's departure or stay? Suddenly, a deep voice rang out, Uncle Netjeff, are you bullying Tasha? The crown prince was seen walking over with a sullen face. Tasha raised a smiling face and happily greeted her brother. But the crown prince walked up to her and scooped her into his arms. The crown prince held Tasha tightly in his embrace, looking warily at his own uncle. He asked his uncle in an unfriendly tone if he had been bullying his sister. The Marquis, who was inexplicably accused, quickly raised both hands in denial. Only then did the crown prince's icy expression soften a little. The Marquis saw it was time for him to make his exit. He reached out, wanted to pat Tasha's head again, but it was unceremoniously slapped away by the crown prince. The crown prince even added seriously, sorry, uncle. My hand slipped. The Marquis couldn't stand this doting brother anymore. He could only say he would come back later. I have something to give to Tasha alone. Seeing Tasha's confused expression, the Marquis explained, Tasha's parents asked me to pass on some things they used at home to Tasha. They also asked me to tell you they are very sorry they can't come to be with you. Worried Tasha would overthink. He added, Tasha, although you may be very sad, your father really has a reason for not being able to come. Tasha paused for a long time before squeezing out a smile, saying she was fine. As long as her mom and dad were doing well, she was relieved. The Marquis was a little surprised by Tasha's maturity and sensibility. He showed a gratified smile, said goodbye to the two of them, and left. The crown prince saw that Tasha was in low spirits and carried her to the terrace for some fresh air. The crown prince once again worriedly instructed Tasha, if anyone bullies you, even if it's my uncle, you have to get away from him. Then wait obediently for your brother to come and save you. Tasha nodded helplessly. So far, only Belaley had bullied her. No one else had the guts. Thinking of Belaley, Tasha asked hesitantly, I think calling you Ali is indeed too presumptuous. How about I respectfully call you your highness, the crown prince, from now on? The crown prince put on a stern face and pretended to be angry. You dare call me your highness, the crown prince? You just try it. Tasha immediately backed down and obediently called out, Ali. This made the crown prince break into a wide smile. Tasha saw it. Layers of aura emanated from around him. This color should represent happiness, right? The two joked around for a while, then Tasha wanted to go back first. The ball wasn't much fun anyway. The Crown Prince suggested having a lady-in-waiting escort her back. Tasha quickly waved her hands to refuse, saying she just wanted to go back alone. She thought her brother would definitely insist on having a lady-in-waiting go with her. Unexpectedly, her brother thought for a moment and actually agreed. Tasha quickly said goodbye to her brother, climbed over the railing, and left. Watching her departing figure, the Crown Prince called out, "Kano." It turned out Kano had been standing on the other side of the railing all along. The Crown Prince smiled and asked him, "You were talking with Tasha just now." She didn't cry, did she? Kano, however, was certain. Tasha definitely doesn't know what my spirit is. Once she finds out, she'll stay far away from me. After saying that, he intended to leave. The Crown Prince quickly asked him to help escort her on his way back. The Crown Prince, while verbally agreeing to his sister's freedom to return alone, had actually already arranged for someone to protect her secretly. If not Kano, it would have been another night. Kano could only agree helplessly. He secretly followed Tasha's steps. The little princess Tasha once again came to the kitchen. The head chef's attitude became apprehensive. Only then did he know Tasha was the princess. He had even eaten the dessert the princess made before. Tasha told him not to be so formal. "I came this time because I want to make something to eat. I came back from the ball in such a hurry that I didn't eat anything." The head chef could only assist from the side, making dessert with the little princess. Suddenly, a woman walked into the kitchen and greeted the head chef warmly. "I came to talk to you about the cake. Have you thought about selling that cake exclusively?" Seeing Tasha's confused expression, the head chef crouched down and explained to Tasha. After seeing the chocolate lava cake Her Highness the Princess made last time, he learned to make some himself. He then shared them with some nobles and attendants. He didn't expect that after a woman ate it, she would run over and ask him to sell this cake. The woman was still constantly trying to persuade the head chef to cooperate with her. At that time, everyone in the entire imperial capital would go crazy rushing to taste this cake. This was a cake that even His Majesty the Emperor had praised as extremely delicious. The little princess showed her intention to cooperate. The head chef held the contract, feeling a bit melancholic. The little princess was only 10 years old, and as a royal chef, he was forbidden from having a side business. The little princess took the contract and looked at it. It only offered them 10 million karas. She immediately refused the woman. Under the little princess's silver tongue, the woman agreed to raise it to 20 million karas. The little princess was still not satisfied. Finally, the woman reluctantly raised it to 50 million karas. The little princess immediately agreed. The woman couldn't help but complain to the head chef, asking if this little girl was his money-making manager. The head chef stood beside Tasha and solemnly introduced her to the woman. In fact, she was the one who first made the chocolate lava cake. She was also His Majesty's youngest grandchild, Her Highness Princess Tasha. The woman's expression was petrified. A scream was then heard from the kitchen. Having sealed the deal, Tasha carried the delicious food she had made and walked back to her chambers in a cheerful mood. But on the way, she saw Kano, who had been waiting for her. Tasha subconsciously flinched. Kano said he had no ill intentions and was just here to escort her back to her room. To prevent Tasha from misunderstanding, Kano explained that His Highness the Crown Prince had ordered him to do so. Only then did Tasha follow his steps. Because the atmosphere was too cold, the little princess tried to make small talk with Kano. "Why did you leave the banquet early too? You were the guest of honor at this banquet." But Kano killed the conversation as soon as he opened his mouth. This victory banquet was exchanged for many lives. Tasha collapsed and facepalmed. Kano continued to murmur, "Besides, everyone despises me." Avoiding her gaze, Tasha asked in confusion what he had said. Kano silently looked at Tasha for a moment. In the end, he didn't explain further, turned, and continued walking. Tasha could see Kano's dejected mood. She took out the sandwich she had made and asked Kano if he wanted to try it. Kano refused without a second thought. The atmosphere turned cold again. Seeing the little princess's dissatisfied expression, Kano reluctantly took the sandwich, but he just held it in his hand and didn't eat it. Tasha thought Kano didn't eat while walking because of the noble's decorum. She planned to lend him the basket in her hand once they reached her room. Kano escorted Tasha to her door and was about to leave. Tasha remembered she hadn't given him the basket yet. She went forward and grabbed Kano's sleeve, telling him to wait. But Kano subconsciously flung her away. Seeing Tasha fall to the ground, Kano had a look of terror on his face. The little princess was pushed to the ground by the gray-haired boy, completely stunned. She just wanted to lend the basket to Kano. She had been flung away by the Crown Prince last time, too. History is always surprisingly similar. Seeing the sandwich scattered on the floor, Tasha felt a sense of grievance. She looked up at Kano, only to find a terrified expression on his face. She was the one who was flung away. Why did Kano look as if he was the one who had been pushed down? Tasha suddenly noticed a colored aura around Kano. This meant he was feeling emotional. She had never seen this on him before. Tasha got up and explained that she had grabbed him only because she wanted to lend him the basket for the sandwich. After learning the truth, Kano bowed deeply and apologized to Tasha. Tasha expressed her understanding on the surface, but privately, she secretly clutched the hem of her skirt and reflected, "Did I grab their clothes too forcefully? Why do they always want to fling me away?" Tasha's heart suddenly felt extremely sad. Tears of grievance streamed down, but she still had to control her expression and pretend she was fine. She turned, told Kano to go back and be safe, and shut the door with a slam. Seeing the little princess's tears, Kano stood there, blaming himself. The next day, Tasha fell ill without any warning. After chatting with the little chick for a while, just as she was about to go back to sleep, she saw a colored aura drifting into the room. Based on the color, Tasha guessed the visitor must be the crown prince. She quickly closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep, mainly because being visited while sick felt a bit embarrassing. The crown prince came to her bedside and called out, "Tasha." Tasha flinched. The towel on her head accidentally fell off. The crown prince concernedly put the towel back for her. She couldn't keep up the pretense. Tasha could only pretend she had just woken up. The crown prince first carefully wrung out the towel for her again, then told her to rest well. He said that when she got better, he would grant her any wish. Tasha mumbled, "But I want marshmallows and butter." As she spoke, Tasha's vision began to blur, and she fell into a deep sleep. 3 days later, Tasha felt much better. The door to her room suddenly opened. The maid instantly became nervous and stammered out the announcement, "Lord Kano is here." Tasha shot up from the bed in an instant. Kano walked in, holding a bouquet of flowers. He asked how Tasha was feeling. Tasha thought about how Kano had pushed her. She retaliated by whining that her whole body ached. She had a fever, a cough, and her ankle and wrist were constantly in pain. Kano stated that he was here to apologize for his mistake last time. It took the maid a long while to gather her courage and ask Kano if she could put the flowers in a vase for him. But Tasha noticed the maid's hand trembling with fear. The little princess was sick. To atone, Kano promised the little princess that he would stay by her side and take care of her. He then added, "Of course, if her highness is willing." Afraid that Kano would go back on his word, the little princess immediately replied, "I am willing." She got out of bed and had the maid help her get dressed. Although she had been sick, Tasha had been in bed for 3 days and was basically almost recovered. The maid didn't stop the little princess from going out. Tasha led Kano to the kitchen. Kano seemed to have some reservations. He asked Tasha uncertainly, "You're going to the kitchen with me? Are you sure you want to do this?" Tasha put on a pained expression, whining that her ankle hurt. Kano immediately dropped the subject. He even concernedly asked Tasha if she wanted him to carry her on his back. Tasha looked at Kano with pitiful eyes, "But I might be a bit heavy. It would tire you out, wouldn't it? Although my ankle really does hurt right now." Kano helplessly crouched down for the little princess to get on. Tasha was stunned. She was just joking. He was really going to carry her? Oh well, whatever. Tasha climbed directly onto Kano's back. Kano easily lifted her. The little princess rested her hands on Kano's shoulders. A blush appeared on her face. Kano's back seemed broader than she had imagined. Just then, the little chick's spirit flew over from a distance. It said in shock in Tasha's mind, "When I asked you to hold his hand before, you were so reluctant. Turns out you wanted him to carry you on his back." Tasha vehemently denied it. She just wanted to make Kano suffer a little. The two soon arrived at the kitchen. The head chef saw the little princess being carried on someone's back and hurriedly asked with concern what was wrong with her leg. But as he got closer, he saw that the person carrying the little princess was actually Kano. The head chef froze on the spot for a moment. So nervous he became incoherent. "Lord Kano, why are you in the kitchen?" Tasha said, "Kano is here to help me make desserts." It had to be said, Kano really looked out of place in the kitchen. He didn't even know how to use the simplest egg beater. Under Tasha's step-by-step guidance, he slowly got the hang of it. The head chef at the side had an ashen face and was trembling the whole time. Tasha couldn't understand why everyone was so afraid of Kano. Logically, they should be afraid of her, the princess, right? With Kano's help, the sandwich cookies were quickly made. The little princess cheerfully wanted to share the cookies with Kano. Kano refused with a blank expression. The little princess had already figured it out. Kano was the type of person who would subconsciously refuse others' kindness. She already had a strategy to deal with it. Tasha held up her hand, whining that her wrist hurt. As expected, Kano reluctantly accepted the cookies. Tasha asked the head chef at the side in confusion why he wasn't eating. She picked up a cookie and was about to hand it to him, but Kano snatched it away. Tasha was speechless. Why did Kano have to snatch other people's food? But Kano spoke up, saying he was a bit thirsty and asked the head chef to get some water. The head chef immediately took off running as if fleeing a disaster. Kano told the little princess not to force others. But Tasha looked innocent. "Why do you say that? The cookies are delicious." Kano sighed helplessly that, "I see you don't seem to know what my spirit is." "Let me tell you." But Tasha interrupted him, "I know. Isn't your spirit the death spirit?" Kano was stunned. So the little princess knew everything. Learning that the little princess knew his spirit was the death spirit, Kano's heart was instantly filled with mixed feelings. He had always thought Tasha was so friendly to him because she didn't know about his spirit. It turned out the little princess had known all along. Tasha was a bit stunned. She saw several colors emanate from Kano in an instant. Based on the colors, she could see his surprise, wonder, and also hope. Tasha wondered, shouldn't I know? Kano's spirit was very famous. It was something the entire empire knew. It shouldn't be strange that she knew, right? This was also what Kano couldn't understand. Since she knew what his spirit was, why did the little princess still approach him? Everyone in the Empire stayed far away from him. Tasha's little chick spirit couldn't help but sighed, I can imagine what kind of life he's lived. What a bunch of ignorant humans. The one who formed a contract with Kano is not the death spirit at all. What? Tasha was shocked. She asked the spirit in her mind what it meant. The head chef suddenly walked in with tea. The little princess took the tea and said she had something urgent to do. She told Kano to carry the cookies and hurry up and follow her. The two of them unconsciously walked into the courtyard. He curiously asked the little princess what the urgent matter was. Tasha didn't answer, just took the cookies from his hand. She was just afraid that Kano would get hurt if they stayed there any longer. But she couldn't say such things out loud. The two continued to wander around in silence. Tasha asked the little chick in her mind, what did you mean just now when you said it's not the death spirit? She remembered that Kano's spirit could kill people with just a flick of a finger. That's why everyone kept a respectful distance from Kano. Even his parents avoided him. The little chick explained that Kano's spirit is the time spirit. It can kill invisibly by compressing time. Even so, people would still be afraid of Kano. As long as his spirit could kill in their eyes, there was no difference between the time spirit and the death spirit. Tasha stopped in her tracks and called out to Kano. Kano asked her in confusion what was wrong. Tasha put on a smiling face and told him to take half of the cookies home. After all, he had made them with his own hands. But Kano suggested he wanted to take all the cookies. This made Tasha a little confused. Why was he being so direct? Kano lowered his head, the light in his eyes dimming. Anyway, no one will eat what I made. Tasha's mood instantly sank as well. The contractor of the death spirit. No one dared to eat the things he made. No one dared to get close to him. He must have experienced this situation countless times. In a novel, this was just the tragic setting that came with his character. But now, with such a living person standing in front of her, Tasha felt incredibly sorry for this Kano. She retorted, are your hands covered in mud? You wash your hands completely clean. What could be the problem? Anyway, I'm only giving you half the cookies. After saying that, she turned and left. She walked too fast and suddenly twisted her ankle, crying out in pain. Kano thought Tasha was pretending to be in pain again and asked helplessly if he needed to carry her. The little princess, with tears in her eyes, said, it really hurts this time. Kano, who had been teased by the little princess for the past few days, couldn't tell if it was real pain or fake pain. But he still helplessly picked her up. After being picked up by Kano, the little princess had a somewhat stunned expression. Kano had clearly said he would just carry her on his back. How did it become a princess carry? Worried that Kano's arms would get sore, Tasha asked uncertainly, am I heavy? Kano replied with a relaxed expression, about the weight of a bag of wheat. In that instant, the little princess suddenly saw a blue aura emanating from Kano. This represented that he was in a very pleasant mood. It seemed that night, Kano wasn't disgusted by her touching him. Rather, it was because she was the first person who dared to do so that Kano felt panic. A short while later, after escorting the little princess back, Kano also returned to his home. The servants respectfully welcomed him. Everyone was both respectful and fearful of him. Even his parents, who came out to greet him, were so afraid that their bodies couldn't stop trembling. Kano casually greeted them and went upstairs to his room. Sitting alone in the cold room, Kano looked at the packed cookies in his hand. A warmth gradually filled his heart. He had thought that the moment he spoke to the little princess, she would cry. But not only was the little princess not afraid of him, she even gave him such a smile. Recalling that smile, Kano's face instantly turned red with shyness. At the same time, the little princess over here was sitting on the sofa with a long face. It was because the emperor heard that she was sick and had sprained her ankle again, so he personally came to visit her. But when the emperor arrived, he didn't speak to her, instead asking the butler beside him about her condition. Tasha sat at the side, getting sleepy from listening. She suddenly noticed a white spirit floating around her and couldn't resist poking it with her hand. The emperor suddenly called Tasha's name. Tasha looked up and saw a purple color emanating from the emperor. This was the color of worry. Was His Majesty worried about her? The emperor asked Tasha why she hadn't been attending her classes properly since she started studying with the Crown Prince. Tasha forced a smile that, I feel that those lessons are probably prepared for His Highness the Crown Prince. Could I perhaps learn something else? But the emperor told her seriously that those lessons were not just prepared for the Crown Prince. For the empire to be strong, it needs a sufficiently strong leader. He was treating them both equally, raising them as successors. This was also what gave Tasha a headache. She had no intention of competing with the Crown Prince for the throne. She explained to the emperor with utmost seriousness that she had no interest in the position. This surprised the emperor somewhat. The emperor wanted to try and continue speaking. Tasha couldn't help but tighten her grip on her skirt. She could feel that His Majesty only cared about the future of the empire in his eyes, but never cared about the Crown Prince's future. Tasha interrupted the emperor with a look of dissatisfaction. Then, what about Alec? Your Majesty, besides being the emperor, you are also Alec's grandfather. What about Alek's future? His feelings? Since you've already named him the Crown Prince, why did you have to find me as a so-called backup? You don't consider him at all. The Emperor was stunned by these words. The little princess bluntly criticized the Emperor. Grandfather should consider the Crown Prince's feelings more, instead of only caring about the Empire's future. The Emperor first ordered the servants to withdraw. After only the two of them were left in the room, he asked Tasha, "What should I do to be considered thoughtful towards Alek?" Tasha said, "Your Majesty shouldn't compare the Crown Prince with others. You should give him enough love and trust. With the Crown Prince's abilities, there's no need for any backup. He is more than capable of handling the position of ruler." But the Emperor interrupted Tasha that I watched Alek grow up. You've only known him for a few months, and you think you know him better than I do? Tasha questioned the Emperor indignantly. In the past 10 years, have you really adored him as a grandson? The Crown Prince lost his parents when he was young. His other relatives only met him briefly at the spirit ceremony many years ago. And every single one of these relatives is jealous of him and hate him. As she said this, Tasha's eyes filled with tears and her voice choked up. How lonely must the Crown Prince have been all these years? Even his closest grandfather doesn't care about him. But the Emperor asked back, "Then what about you?" Tasha showed a confused expression. The Emperor said, "I am Alek's grandfather, and I am also your grandfather. Don't you have any expectations of me?" Tasha repeatedly shook her head. She really didn't. After all, she had been living in a small, shabby house with her parents before. It was only recently that the knights found her father, and Tasha learned she was a princess. Other than wanting to go home, she didn't want anything else. The Emperor crossed his arms, asking Tasha with dissatisfaction, "Since you demand that I treat Alek like a normal grandfather treats his grandson, why do you keep calling me your Majesty?" Tasha felt confused. If not your Majesty, what should she call the Emperor? Seeing her clueless look, the Emperor's brow furrowed slightly. He took a sip of tea to calm himself down before saying he could agree to let Tasha study other courses. And the gift he promised to give her when he ate her cake before would also be sent over in the afternoon. Tasha quickly said that what she wanted was something else. The Emperor rested his chin on his hand, his eyes filled with anticipation as he said, "Then I'll give you a chance. If you can address me correctly, I will grant your wish." Tasha was baffled. She could only try calling out, "The brilliant and immortal son of the Empire, your Majesty the Emperor." The Emperor's face instantly darkened. He stood up, saying it was getting late and he should leave. Tasha, completely bewildered, respectfully saw him off. The shade of gray on the Emperor just now made Tasha feel inexplicably concerned. It seemed to give off a very sad feeling. What was going on? In the afternoon, when she saw the gift the Emperor had sent her, Tasha was utterly stunned. The gift was actually a gray-haired boy. There was not a trace of emotion in his eyes, like a coal machine. The little princess truly did not expect that the gift from her grandfather the Emperor would be a gray-haired boy. She couldn't feel a single trace of emotion from this boy. The boy's eyes were completely devoid of light, like a person who had lost his soul. Tasha asked him his name. The boy replied, "I don't have a name." Even his voice was devoid of emotion. Tasha, at a loss, asked him what everyone called him before he came. The emotionless voice sounded again. "They called me Trash." The little princess wondered if she was hearing things. That name was too disrespectful. However, this also confirmed for her that this boy was also a supporting character in the novel. In the original novel, the ones who were supposed to kill Tasha were the Crown Prince and Kano. But the one who ultimately killed her was actually the slave she had abused for years. That slave was called Trash by the Tasha in the novel. Because he couldn't bear Tasha's constant persecution, he finally chose to strike a fatal blow. Tasha was on the verge of a breakdown now. All three men who were supposed to take her life had appeared. Tasha tried hard to calm herself down. After all, she wasn't the Tasha from the novel, and her relationship with the Crown Prince was very good now. The first step to improving her relationship with the gray-haired boy was to quickly change his name. The little princess removed the boy's chains and named him Ivan. The boy showed no reaction upon hearing this name, merely nodding like a robot. Tasha ordered the maid to take Ivan to bathe and change into clean clothes. Afterwards, she avoided the maid and secretly went to the kitchen. After all, since she had just recovered from her illness, the maid had been watching her very closely. She could only sneak to the kitchen. Tasha planned to make some apple pie for Ivan. The head chef was already used to the little princess's visits and skillfully assisted her. Just as she was about to put the pie in the oven, the Crown Prince came looking for her. The head chef was so scared to see the Crown Prince personally gracing the kitchen that he froze on the spot. Seeing Tasha's confused expression, the Crown Prince smiled and explained that he didn't find her in her room, so he guessed she must have come to the kitchen. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the kitchen. "Alek. Alek, look at me." It was the voice of the Crown Prince's fire spirit. Unfortunately, the Crown Prince couldn't hear a word. He only felt that the kitchen seemed to have inexplicably grown colder. Tasha showed a helpless expression. She instantly realized it was the fire spirit. The Crown Prince bowed with a smile, apologizing for his mischievous fire spirit. After a while, the little princess took out the prepared pie to put it in the oven. The Crown Prince noticed a flower on Tasha's face. With a natural and intimate gesture, he took out a handkerchief and wiped the flour off for Tasha. After the pie was put in the oven, the Crown Prince didn't leave either, just waited in the kitchen with Tasha. Tasha curiously asked him why he was looking for her. The Crown Prince said he heard that their grandfather, the Emperor, had given Tasha a gift. He also planned to give Tasha a gift. The Crown Prince lifted the little princess onto the table and lowered his head to check her ankle. He saw that the injury was even more red and swollen. The Crown Prince's heart ached for Tasha. Her foot injury was so severe, yet she was still standing in front of the stove making desserts. The little princess said coquettishly that she was almost better. She promised the Crown Prince she would go back right after finishing this apple pie. But the Crown Prince wouldn't let her down. He made Tasha promise him that she wouldn't come to the kitchen again until her foot injury had healed. After speaking, he even gave a smile that Tasha couldn't refuse. The little princess covered her face and said, "Then you won't get to eat the desserts I make, as long as Tasha was healthy." The Crown Prince said he would be fine not eating desserts for the rest of his life. The little princess asked, "Are you saying my desserts aren't delicious enough?" The Crown Prince unceremoniously poked her on the nose. "Your desserts are the most delicious in the whole world, okay?" The little princess could only obediently agree not to run around again until her injury healed. Suddenly, a puff of black smoke drifted from the kitchen. The head chef opened the oven and saw that the apple pie was burnt. Everyone was stunned. Was there a problem with the oven? Tasha instantly realized what the problem was: the fire spirit. Tasha bluntly lectured the fire spirit. The fire spirit looked at Tasha with teary eyes and explained aggrievedly that the magic crystal in the oven had reacted to it. Tasha felt even more grieved. Half a day's hard work was all for nothing. The Crown Prince apologized on behalf of the fire spirit while gently wiping away the little princess's tears. The head chef was suddenly at a loss, exclaiming with exaggeration, "Her Highness the Princess can actually read the fire spirit's mind?" Actually, I used to like playing like that when I was a kid, too. I'd take a wooden sword and pretend I could talk to it. Tasha was flustered. The head chef seemed to be helping him. It's very likely the head chef thought he was bluffing and was afraid he'd be embarrassed in front of the Crown Prince. But he really does have the ability to talk to spirits. Just like that, the Crown Prince and the little princess pointlessly watched the head chef's exaggerated performance. The Crown Prince couldn't help but let out a heartfelt smile. It seems the head chef is indeed a very reliable person. I can rest assured leaving my daily meals to you. The head chef was stunned. What did he do? He had somehow gained the Crown Prince's favor for no reason. The Crown Prince took out a handkerchief and wiped Tasha's tears again. Since the fire spirit's presence here would affect Tasha's dessert making, he had no choice but to say he would leave first. The Crown Prince turned and glanced at the head chef again. This glance scared the head chef into freezing on the spot. The Crown Prince leaned in close to him, lowered his voice, and whispered some instructions before leaving the kitchen. Tasha curiously asked the head chef what the Crown Prince had said to him. The head chef didn't hide it. "His Highness told me to keep the secret that you can communicate with spirits." Speaking of which, the head chef curiously asked Tasha, "Can you really talk to spirits?" The little chick complained to the spirit about Tasha, saying she's so stupid. No wonder she was always beaten by her sisters at home. Tasha truthfully relayed the chick's words to the head chef. The head chef now truly believed it. The little princess generously praised Ivan's new clothes, but Ivan remained expressionless. Fortunately, the little princess was already used to him being like this. Tasha took out the apple pie she made herself and gave it to Ivan. "This is a dessert I prepare to welcome you." Ivan said thanks in his emotionless voice. Tasha looked Ivan over again and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. This child, Ivan, is far too thin. Upon closer inspection, his skin wasn't completely pale, but had a bluish tint under the white. Tasha felt something was off about him. The Crown Prince knocked twice and walked in. He took out the apple pie he had received to thank her. After receiving it, "I thought I'd come and have afternoon tea with you." Since the little princess had an injured leg, the Crown Prince thoughtfully told her to just sit on the bed. During their conversation, Tasha and the Crown Prince mentioned Ivan. This unfamiliar name made the Crown Prince raise an eyebrow. Tasha quickly explained that he was a gift from His Majesty the Emperor. The Crown Prince was silent for a moment, then just took the little princess's hand, urging her to tell him no matter what happened. Tasha wondered if the Crown Prince wasn't busy today. He used to be so busy, she rarely saw him. The Crown Prince explained helplessly, "Today is my last day off, but I've specifically found someone to come and play with you in my place." Tasha had a bad feeling. The Crown Prince said cheerfully, "Starting tomorrow, Kano will come to see you every night." The little princess was in despair. She's not a child. That night, Tasha received something from Arkina Jeff. Inside were items from her home sent by her parents, along with a letter. In the letter, her parents expressed how much they missed her, but they wouldn't be able to come to the palace for a while. They also shared some interesting things that happened at home. Finally, they reminded Tasha to take care of herself in the palace. Tasha picked up a pen and also shared the interesting things happening around her with her parents. The little chick, the head chef, and Kano were all written into it. Finally, she reminded her parents to take care of their health as well. Tasha rummaged through the package and found her things from home. Among them was a recipe book she treasured. It recorded many desserts she had made in her past life. "With this, I can make so many more things." Tasha hugged the recipe book contentedly and lay on the bed. She secretly made a resolution in her heart. When she leaves the palace, she'll use the money from selling the chocolate lava cake to buy a big house and live with her mom and dad. While sleeping at night, the little chick suddenly woke Tasha up with a loud shout, telling her to get up quickly. Tasha, trying to act relaxed, asked him what was wrong. The little chick, with a serious face, pointed in a direction. If there's something strange over there, you should go and see. Tasha was creeped out by what the little chick said. She wrapped the blanket tightly around herself and refused, saying she wasn't going anywhere. The little chick didn't care. He just forcefully dragged Tasha to the wardrobe. Tasha was terrified. She swallowed hard, but also felt a little puzzled. Since there was a lock on the wardrobe, it must mean no one was supposed to open it. But the key was placed right next to it. She mustered her courage, took the key, and opened the door. The little princess discovered that there was another room inside her wardrobe. On the bed sat an expressionless boy. It was Ivan. Tasha asked him in confusion why he was here. Ivan heard Tasha's reluctance, got off the bed expressionlessly, and knelt on the floor. The little princess quickly explained that she wasn't blaming him. After questioning him, Tasha learned that this room was specially prepared for Ivan by the attendant. The little chick's spirit suddenly jumped out in confusion. How can a Nada's spirit be here? They're not supposed to leave the Northern Territory. The little chick had been flying around all this time, but this was the first time he had seen Ivan. The little chick told Tasha that the Nada spirits have always been called the sinful race. They were exiled to the Northern Territory and are not allowed to leave at will. The little chick checked again and felt something was wrong. Ivan is actually a half-blood of a Nada spirit and a human. How could this be? Tasha, however, didn't think much of it. A human and a spirit having a child isn't strange, right? In her past life, she had read many novels about this, but the little chick seriously educated her. Have you ever seen a lobster and a sparrow produce a half-blood? Tasha really couldn't imagine it. The chick suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He shouted excitedly, I know, it's Plasti, one of the 5 fragments of sin. One piece was being guarded by the little chick. There were 4 other pieces. Unexpectedly, one of them had now come to him on its own. The little chick said with a straight face that Tasha must cure Ivan. Tasha was confused. How do I cure him? The little chick explained, mainly, you need to heal Ivan's twisted heart. He now completely refuses to feel or think actively. He doesn't accept the things around him, nor does he express his feelings. And Plasti has begun to take root in his empty heart. But it's precisely because of Plasti that Ivan was able to be born. Once his will falters, he will be devoured by Plasti. The Nada spirit race is born with the ability to stop their thoughts and emotions. Although Ivan only has half their bloodline, he also inherited this ability. Ivan's current state is probably that he's gone astray and can't wake up from it. Tasha asked in confusion how she was supposed to heal him. The little chick said it was simple. You just use your ability. Either make more food for him or spend more time with him. If you succeed, that guy will be able to find his emotions again. Tasha readily agreed. She wanted to help Ivan from the bottom of her heart. But right now, the most important thing was to solve Ivan's living situation. His Majesty the Emperor must have arranged for Ivan to live here. To get him to move out, she had to go to the Emperor. The little princess went to see the Emperor with a dessert. Learning that the dessert was made by Tasha herself, colors of both pleasure and displeasure appeared on the Emperor at the same time. What's going on? Tasha was a little confused. After tasting the dessert, the Emperor got straight to the point, asking Tasha why she came to see him so early in the morning. The little princess put on an expectant expression that was hard to refuse. If I ask, will you grant my wish? The unyielding Emperor said he would listen first. That won't do. Tasha had to get His Majesty the Emperor's promise before she dared to ask. If she couldn't get a promise, she had to at least soften his attitude. But no matter how the little princess acted cute and pestered him, the Emperor wouldn't budge. Tasha was so angry she was about to spit blood. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Try calling him by a different name. You keep calling him Your Majesty. Of course he's not happy. Change it quickly. A transparent spirit floated by Tasha's side. The Emperor, seeing Tasha silent for a long time, gave her an order to leave. If you're not going to say anything, then you can go. The little princess nervously swallowed and hesitantly called out, Grandfather. In an instant, all the colors of displeasure on the Emperor disappeared, leaving only the color of happiness. He cleared his throat and, in a serious tone, told Tasha to state her purpose for coming today, but his voice was several degrees softer. Tasha saw that now was the best time and quickly stated her request. Grandfather, that slave you bestowed upon me, please make him a commoner. I hope he can become my attendant. But the Emperor disagreed, saying even a commoner cannot be an attendant to the royal family. Tasha's mood dropped. After thinking for a while, she asked the Emperor uncertainly, then how about letting him learn swordsmanship and be a guard? The Emperor still disagreed. What if he has ill intentions and ends up hurting you? Tasha felt a bit dejected. Why doesn't he like anything? She raised her eyes, her gaze bright and expectant as she looked at the Emperor. Is it really not possible, Grandfather? Her tone was full of coquettishness. The Emperor clearly couldn't resist. He could only take a step back and agree to let Ivan become a commoner. The little princess jumped up in joy, but her joy turned to sorrow. Her not yet healed foot twisted again. She lost her balance and fell to the ground. The Emperor stood up nervously, his tone urgent as he asked her how she was. The little princess didn't expect the Emperor to react so strongly and quickly said she was fine. But the Emperor felt like the sky was was falling. He completely lost his usual composure. He frantically told the attendants to come in quickly. The transparent spirit floated out at the right moment and spoke to the little princess smugly. See, it worked, right? Tasha curiously asked him if he was the wind spirit contracted to her grandfather. The king spirit smiled and admitted it. He urged Tasha to come and see the emperor more often in the future. After all, what grandfather doesn't miss his granddaughter? The little princess successfully restored Ivan's status as a commoner. She ordered a maid to change Ivan to a new room. Ivan still had an expressionless face. The little princess was already used to it. She excitedly asked Ivan if there was anything he was interested in learning, like poetry and literature, or baking with her. He could also learn swordsmanship. Ivan's reaction was like a cold robot. I will follow all your arrangements. The little chick couldn't help but complain. It's a miracle he's even breathing and alive right now. How could he possibly think about these things? Tasha thought for a moment and decided she had to get Ivan moving first. But the little chick said that it's useless to make a body without a mind move. Tasha disagreed with the little chick. She believed that physical health brings mental health. Tasha first had Ivan train hard in swordsmanship. She was responsible for making desserts to give him after his training. When she arrived at the kitchen, she saw the head chef with a gloomy aura sitting in a corner holding his head in despair. Tasha curiously asked him what was wrong. It turned out that in 2 days, Otis would be sending a peace delegation. The head chef was appointed to be in charge of the after-dinner desserts. In the harsh northern region, the Nodis mostly eat beef, but they choose a specific period to abstain from all food related to cattle. The timing of the delegation's arrival coincided with this period of not eating beef. All food related to cattle was forbidden, including dairy products. Beef, milk, butter, cream, cheese, and yogurt were all off limits. The little princess realized the seriousness of the situation. Knowing that dairy products couldn't be used and still asking the head chef to make desserts, it was obvious these people just wanted to see the head chef make a fool of himself. The head chef, devastated, banged his head on the table. Tasha told him to pull himself together. We just need to make a dessert without dairy products. But the head chef was at a loss. He had never seen a dessert without dairy products. Tasha told the head chef to wait a moment. She quickly ran back to her room and flipped through her recipe book. After flipping through more than half of it, she sighed. It seemed there was really nothing she could make. And if she couldn't use milk or butter at all, she had no desire to make desserts. The little chick seemed to have a very low opinion of the Nodis race, complaining rudely, what a troublesome bunch of spirits. Tasha curiously asked the little chick why he hated the Nodis so much. The little chick said resentfully, because they're the fools who separated the heavens and the earth. Seeing Tasha's confused expression, the little chick could only explain it to her slowly. Originally, spirits and humans could communicate freely even without a contract. But at that time, a group of foolish humans and spirits came up with a terrible idea. The little princess now learned that in this world, spirits and humans originally got along very well. But one day, a group of people proposed to draw a clear line with the spirits, to not interfere with each other from then on. The earth would be ruled by humans, and the sky would be ruled by spirits. They used the arrow of sin to successfully separate the sky and the land. But this act violated the laws of nature. A dark power that didn't originally exist formed between heaven and earth. That dark power then used the arrow of sin to slaughter both humans and spirits. Later, the little chick and some other spirits managed to break the arrow of sin into 4 pieces and sealed the dark power in the Northern Territory. However, because the seal was not stable enough, people needed to be sent there to guard it long term. So, the sinners and spirits who initially proposed drawing the line were sent to do this, exiled to the north. And the existence of the Nodis spirit race was the result of those humans and spirits gradually evolving. In the process of fighting against the dark power, those humans and spirits gradually merged into one, giving rise to the current Nodis spirit race. Tasha was shocked to hear this. Humans and spirits actually merged. How amazing, the little chick said. He would never believe that the Nodis clan, just because they ate too much beef, would set a rule about not eating cattle-related food. There must be some other reason. Tasha couldn't help but think. The northern lands are barren, so food sources must be scarce. This time, they came as a delegation and made such a fuss about avoiding dairy products. The reason is, Tasha suddenly had a flash of insight. Lactose intolerance. They get diarrhea from eating dairy products. The Nodis spirit race specifically reminded them not to eat cattle-related foods, especially dairy products. This means their intolerance must be particularly severe. Tasha thought about it. Ivan is also from the Nodis race. It seems she can't give him food containing dairy products in the future either. What should she do now? Tasha started flipping through her recipe book again. In an instant, she found what she wanted to make. In the afternoon, the little princess, having changed her clothes, walked cheerfully towards the kitchen. On the way, she suddenly ran into Kano and a man with a scar on his face. Tasha immediately hid. Actually, she wasn't afraid of Kano anymore, but she hid out of habit when she got nervous. Kano suddenly poked his head out and called her name. Tasha was startled. They were clearly far apart just now. Did Kano run over here on purpose? Tasha stammered and stuttered as she greeted him. Hello, Kano. The scar-faced man beside him also greeted the little princess kindly. Tasha knew this person. He was Helen, the commander-in-chief of the recent Northern War. Kano curiously asked the little princess where she was going. Tasha's awkwardness hadn't faded yet, and she was still stammering. Helen suddenly realized he was probably being a third wheel. He immediately bowed and said he had something to attend to and would take his leave. After Helen left, Tasha indeed relaxed a lot. She grabbed Kano's sleeve and asked him to help her make desserts. The little princess enthusiastically invited Kano to accompany her to make desserts. Kano struggled to refuse that I'm an amateur. I'll only get in the head chef's way. Tasha put on a smile and told him he just needed to be in charge of whisking. Kano was about to refuse again, but Tasha's expression immediately changed. With tears in her eyes and a wrinkled little face, she started complaining that her ankle hurt. Faced with the pestering little princess, Kano asked helplessly, "It's been so long. Shouldn't your ankle be healed by now?" Tasha stopped arguing. She looked at Kano with an expectant expression and said faintly, "Oh dear, my wrist hurts too." Kano sighed helplessly and agreed. Tasha happily led Kano to the kitchen. On the way, Kano hesitated and told Tasha, "I'll definitely cause trouble for the head chef." Tasha told him to relax. "You'll get used to it after seeing each other more." Kano resignedly compromised, "I understand. Since you helped me out just now." Tasha asked in confusion how she had helped him. Kano explained that the commander-in-chief had been inviting him to give a lecture and wouldn't give up even after being refused many times. Tasha instantly couldn't picture Kano giving a lecture. It just felt strange. Kano said he didn't want to give a lecture because he possesses the death spirit. Many students feel they will die if they offend him. That's true. In the entire empire, there are probably only 3 people who aren't afraid of Kano: Tasha, the crown prince, and the emperor. As the two chatted, the topic turned to the head chef. Tasha explained with a downcast expression, "It's all because I'm always going in and out of the dessert kitchen," which made the head chef a target of jealousy. That's why they assigned him to make desserts for the Nada spirits. That's why I've decided I must help the head chef get through this. But Kano spoke up, telling the little princess not to blame herself. That's not the only reason. It turned out the head chef was a count's son. The head chef once wanted to open a private restaurant, but his father disagreed. In the end, the head chef was sent to the palace by the count and became the royal pastry chef. Tasha finally understood. No wonder the head chef didn't seem to have many friends. It was because everyone thought he was a noble and didn't want to hang out with him. That's why some people looked down on the head chef. Kano's intention in saying this was to tell the little princess not to blame herself and that there was no need to get involved in making desserts for the Nadas. But unexpectedly, it only strengthened Tasha's resolve to help the head chef. She said this was a perfect opportunity to put those who bullied the head chef in their place. Kano asked helplessly what she planned to do. The little princess replied excitedly, "I plan to try making a carrot cake." Kano had never had this before. Carrots and cake together just felt strange. He asked uncertainly, "Will it really taste good?" The little princess was also a bit unsure. After all, she couldn't use cream to process it. She could only see how the final product turned out. The two arrived at the kitchen. When the head chef saw Kano, he indeed showed a terrified expression. The little princess pulled Kano into the kitchen. When the head chef saw Kano, he was so terrified he froze on the spot. Hearing that Kano was going to stay in the kitchen to help make desserts, the head chef showed an expression of resistance and rejection. The little princess, displeased, pulled the head chef to a corner. She questioned the head chef about why he was rejecting Kano. Is it because of Kano's death spirit? The head chef nodded, admitting it might be a little bit of that. The little princess, with a stern face, lectured the head chef. You shouldn't treat people differently just because of the spirit they're contracted with. Besides, whether in age or physique, you're much stronger than Kano. What's there to be afraid of? The head chef explained that he wasn't discriminating, he was just unilaterally afraid of Kano. But he was pushed towards Kano from behind by the little princess. "This is your fault. Go and apologize." Seeing Kano getting closer and closer, the atmosphere around them seemed to turn cold and gloomy. The head chef's body couldn't stop trembling. The little princess urged him from behind to hurry up. The head chef braced himself and stammered, "Lord Kano." That is to say, he was already trembling like a leaf. The little princess suddenly stepped forward and poked Kano's cheek, instantly breaking the tense atmosphere. Tasha curiously asked him if he was angry. Kano shook his head, saying he was just a bit speechless. Tasha brought her face close to Kano's and said seriously, "If you feel upset, you can poke me too." Kano sighed helplessly and stroked his forehead. He really didn't know what to do with the little princess. Tasha winked at the head chef, cheering him on. The head chef swallowed. After the little princess's antics, the atmosphere had indeed relaxed a lot. The head chef also felt he wasn't as nervous anymore. He bowed easily to Kano. "Lord Kano, I apologize for my previous rude attitude towards you." In that moment, Kano's feelings were incredibly complex. Everyone just avoided him and stayed far away. This was the first time someone had actively come to apologize to him for something like this. A faint blush appeared on Kano's face. He usually acted so mature that everyone forgot he was just a teenager. The little princess happily placed their hands together. You two should get along well from now on. But they both looked away angrily. After a while, the three of them discussed what kind of cake to make. Since they couldn't use dairy products, the little princess suggested trying a carrot cake. After all, carrot cake was originally created so that commoners who couldn't afford white sugar could also eat dessert. And carrots are the sweetest among vegetables. But serving carrot cake to a delegation would seem a bit shabby. They could only explain the situation properly to the Nada spirits later. They should be able to get their understanding. The little princess turned her face and asked Kano what he thought. Kano was stunned for a moment, then said it would depend on whether the head chef would agree. That's simple. The little princess suggested just saying that the crown prince and his majesty had both agreed. Kano said faintly, falsely claiming his majesty's or his highness the crown prince's decree is a serious crime. The little princess felt like Kano was treating her like an idiot. She stomped her foot angrily that of course I'm going to get his majesty's permission. After saying that, she turned and ordered the head chef to get busy. Only by having his majesty taste the food could she persuade him. She didn't notice Kano behind her, his cheeks flushed, watching her back with a gentle gaze. This 15-year-old boy possessed a terrifying power. A while ago, when he went to fight in the north, the young Kano sat on his horse and gently stretched out his hand. Everything before him turned to ash in an instant and scattered in the wind. And this scene lasted for a full 30 minutes. The reason it took 30 minutes was because Kano was merciful and wanted to give the Nada spirit race time to escape. At this time, Commander-in-Chief Helen was casually discussing the scene with the Crown Prince, saying that the war in the north ended 30 minutes after it started. The other soldiers in the regiment just endured the cold wind for a while. After Kano's move, no one in the army dared to treat him as a 15-year-old child anymore, nor did they dare to look down on Kano, this deputy commander. Helen originally thought that no one would ever get close to Kano again. Today was the first time he had seen Kano actively run towards someone. It was also the first time he had seen him actively care about someone else's situation. The Crown Prince guessed right away that the person Helen was talking about must be Tasha. Right now, only Tasha was willing to actively approach Kano. The Crown Prince was happy to see such a thing happen. He was very glad that his good friend could be redeemed by his dear cousin. After all, he himself was also redeemed by Tasha. Meanwhile, in the main kitchen on the other side, a subordinate cautiously asked the head chef, "Is it really okay to have a chef with little experience be in charge of the dessert for the delegation's banquet?" The head chef flew into a rage upon hearing this. How could he have no experience? You have no idea how hard this person works and studies in secret. Otherwise, how could he have made that chocolate lava cake that even his majesty loves? The kitchen hand, however, shared what he had found out. "I think I heard that Her Highness the little princess invented it and made it for his majesty to eat." The head chef, however, scolded him for being brainless. You could figure that out with your eyes closed. How could a noble royal highness possibly make desserts personally? He waved his hand to dismiss the kitchen hand. All you do is spout nonsense here. The head chef was actually feeling very bitter. His Majesty the Emperor had never been interested in cuisine before, because he was never enthusiastic about fine food, nor did he allow himself to be greedy. His palate knew no desire. Moreover, because His Majesty himself was immune to poison, he naturally didn't need to fear others poisoning his food. As a result, in this palace, the kitchen was naturally not valued. The head chef had thought that he had tried his best and finally climbed to the top of the mountain, but who knew that what he had reached was actually the desolate peak of an iceberg. And it was at this time that the third prince, Barely, extended a helping hand to him. However, Barely's condition was to get rid of the chef no matter what. In addition, to appease the head chef, Barely specially named a type of breading for fried meat cutlets after the head chef. But the quality of that breading was worrying. Even the head chef himself was unwilling to use it. Thinking of this, the head chef angrily slammed his fists on the table. The chef wasn't even in the same palace as him, so how was he supposed to get rid of him? The head chef really didn't want to do this kind of errand. From the bottom of his heart, he wanted to know the recipe for the chocolate lava cake. Because of Barely, he had been holding back from asking the chef. Thinking of this, the head chef's resentment towards Barely grew even deeper, making the great vice commander sit on the floor and grind nuts. Only the little princess could pull something like that off. The chef protested softly, "You shouldn't do this. That's the vice commander." The little princess told the chef to shut up. "You can't stand him just grinding some nuts? If I make Kano do something even more out of character next, I'm afraid you'll go crazy." After a long while, the three of them finally put the prepared cake into the oven. While waiting, Tasha started organizing her recipes. The chef curiously asked the little princess, "Why do you only make desserts?" After thinking for a moment, Tasha gave a serious answer. "Think about it. Why do people offer fresh flowers at the graves of the dead? Even if they do that, the dead cannot be resurrected, and their own situation won't improve. But the reason they insist on doing it is actually to give spiritual comfort to the living." She hoped that the desserts she made could also become someone else's fresh flowers. At this point, Tasha was instantly filled with fighting spirit. She was determined to make desserts that those people would love. She must get Kano's approval. She wanted to see if Kano would keep reacting this way. In no time, the cake was out of the oven. After the chef took a bite, his mouth was like a machine gun, constantly praising how delicious it was. Tasha, with a look of anticipation, gave the cake to Kano. But after he finished eating, his expression didn't change at all. There wasn't even a change of color on him. It seemed Kano didn't like this flavor at all. She would have to find another taste tester. Tasha gave the cake to Ivan. After taking one bite, Ivan was so shocked he couldn't even hold his fork steady. The little princess asked expectantly, "How is it?" Unexpectedly, Ivan showed an expression for the first time. It was a pained, frowning expression. I feel a little sick." This reaction left the little princess at a loss. Ivan had already started vomiting continuously. The little chick told Tasha to calm down. Your cake has awakened a fragment of his memory. Tasha was stunned. Did this mean that the desserts she had been feeding Ivan all this time were finally taking effect? The little chick explained, "He's only recovered a little bit of his ability for now, but it's better than nothing." After Kano gave the cake to the crown prince to taste, he happened to be passing by Tasha's room and came over. He saw the person from a Nodis elf tribe next to Tasha and froze. Tasha quickly introduced Ivan to him, but Kano blurted out, "Please do not associate with a slave." Tasha asked him in confusion why. Kano hesitated, opening and closing his mouth. In the end, he changed the subject. His Highness the Crown Prince was very satisfied with this cake. Tasha put her hands on her hips, asking Kano discontentedly, "Why did you change the subject? Also, don't be so formal with me anymore. Just call me Tasha." Kano was stunned. Then, his face turned slightly red, and he unnaturally averted his gaze. "Then I'll call you that in private." The little princess was very unhappy. Today was the matter of the Knight Commander's appointment. A handmaiden brought out a beautiful dress for the little princess to change into. But the little princess refused without a second thought. The commander of the knightly order is Tasha's maternal grandfather, who was recently appointed. For the past 10 years, her grandfather had never taken the initiative to visit them. This meant he didn't really want to see her either. So why should she go? The helpless handmaiden comforted Tasha. "The commander will surely want to see you. There must have been a special reason before." But Tasha refused to go no matter what. She went to an empty courtyard alone to read a book. After a while, Kano appeared behind Tasha. "I heard you didn't go to the Knight Commander's appointment ceremony today." The little princess looked up at him. "Looks like you didn't go either." Kano said helplessly, "If I went, I would scare them." The little princess chimed in, "I was also afraid I would scare them if I went." Kano teased with interest, "Would they be afraid of a little P?" What the heck? Little P was the nickname the crown prince often called her. She didn't dare to hit the crown prince, but did that mean she didn't dare to hit Kano? Tasha reached out and playfully pounded Kano with her small fists. But Kano grabbed her hand, his tone serious. "Alec was very disappointed by your absence." Tasha thought that was impossible. The crown prince lived so close to her. He could come find her any time at night. Kano teased in a deadpan voice. He said he would disturb the little P's sleep at night. This earned him another round of playful punches from Tasha. Kano curiously asked her why she really didn't attend. Tasha casually made a joke. "I was afraid you would kill me if I went." The atmosphere instantly turned cold. The colors on Kano's body deepened. "Is it because I made a pact with a death spirit?" Tasha froze at a loss. She had almost forgotten about that. Should she just tell him? "Your spirit is actually a time spirit." Tasha hesitated. Maybe Kano got to his position by relying on this special ability. What if she spoke out of turn and ruined things? In the end, Tasha didn't say it. What does that have to do with anything? "I didn't attend because the newly appointed Knight Commander is my..." The colors on Kano's body finally dissipated. He curiously asked Tasha, "Don't you miss your grandfather?" Tasha shook her head, saying she had never met her grandfather before, so there was nothing to miss. The two of them sat on the bench and chatted all afternoon. In the evening, the palace was incredibly lively. The Nodis emissaries had just arrived not long ago, and everyone was celebrating enthusiastically. Tasha leaned boredly on the terrace, watching the festivities from afar. She had to admit they were truly of the same race. The skin color of the Nodis elves was exactly the same as Ivan's. The little chick asked Tasha, "Once Ivan recovers his memories and emotions, will you send him back to the north?" But Tasha showed a worried expression. "It's not that I can't send him back, but what if his mixed blood identity attracts malice from others? Or what if he can't adapt to the new environment?" The little chick, however, laughed loudly at her. "You think too highly of yourself. Although Ivan's abilities are sealed right now, he's still a Nodis elf and human half-blood. He's not as soft as a honey peach like you, and you're worrying for nothing." Tasha directly and unceremoniously flicked the little chick away with her finger. The little chick landed in someone's arms. Kano, holding the little chick, asked in confusion, "How come even the little bird you're raising is so noisy and boisterous?" Kano vaulted over the railing and came before the little princess. He picked up the little princess to rush to the banquet. This sudden action made Tasha blush. She told Kano to put her down. Kano explained that they were running late for the banquet. "Then let's go." Arriving at the banquet, the delegation's representative, Mary, bowed to the little princess in a friendly and respectful manner. Vice Commander Asti also stepped forward to bow to the little princess, but his eyes were fixed on Kano. Seeing this look, the little princess immediately shielded Kano like a mother protecting her cub. The little chick suddenly jumped out, asking her what she was trying to do. For Kano to deal with those two was just a matter of lifting a finger. The little princess said with displeasure, "That person named Asti has an unfriendly look in his eyes." She had originally wanted to take this opportunity to ask about Ivan, to ask the Nodis elf tribe how they control their emotions. But the two people in front front of her didn't seem very reliable. The little chick nodded. It also felt that the person named Asti didn't seem to want to sign this peace treaty. He just doesn't look like a person who is good at. The little chick urged Tasha that it was best to hide Ivan well. In a moment, the banquet began. Asti kept looking in Kano's direction. His gaze was accidentally caught by Tasha. He immediately turned his head away. The emperor, seeing that the meal was almost over, had the dessert brought out. The head chef opened the lid and introduced the dessert. I've kept you all waiting. This is the last dish of the banquet. Its name is rumen bacilli. In an instant, everyone present was shocked. The atmosphere became gloomy. No one spoke a word. Tasha thought the head chef had gone mad. What idiot gave the cake this name? Rumen bacilli was the land the empire had seized from the Nodis elves in the recent war. What if this caused another conflict between the two sides? She had to think of a solution quickly. The little princess slammed her hand on the table, attracting everyone's attention. This cake's meaning is to pray for harmony between the Nodis elf tribe and the empire. The white dove on top symbolizes peace between both sides. This witty answer eased the atmosphere in the room considerably. Tasha continued to explain. The cream on the cake symbolizes the year-round snow on Rumen Bacilli Street. The cream is made from cashews and contains no dairy products. Everyone can enjoy it without worry. Asti curiously asked Tasha why she knew so much about the cake. Tasha had no choice but to admit that she was the one who made the cake. Learning that the cake was actually made by the little princess, everyone eagerly began to taste it. After just one bite, a certain noble present was so shocked that he praised it generously. This is the first time I've ever eaten a cake like this. Everyone nodded in agreement. The little princess also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, the cake's name didn't cause any misunderstanding. The cake made by the little princess's own hands conquered the emissary from the north, Mary. After the meal, Mary praised the little princess to Kano. The little princess is like a clever elf. She expressed that she really wanted to get the recipe for the cake. Kano truthfully informed her that the little princess made the cake and that she would have to ask her for the recipe. Mary, however, thought Kano was unwilling to give her the recipe. Don't joke with me. How could the little princess possibly have made that cake? But Kano stated firmly and seriously, we have no need to make such a joke. Mary was shocked. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the little princess asked the chef with dissatisfaction, why didn't you just let me name the cake? We almost had a major incident today. As it turned out, the chef was afraid the little princess would give it a name like Tasha's carrot cake or something similar. So he simply let the head chef name it. Tasha's head drooped listlessly. That kind of name really was her style. The chef truly understood her through and through. Forget it. The matter is resolved anyway. Tasha told the chef that she planned to give the cake recipe to the Nodis elf tribe, since they seemed to like the cake very much. But the chef was firmly against it. A recipe like this is worth a fortune. How can we just give it to them for free? The little princess, however, said, if this cake can be exchanged for permanent peace, then its value is more than just a fortune, isn't it? This small recipe might just be able to promote harmonious relations between our two sides. Hearing these words, the chef scratched his head in shame, deeply realizing how narrow his own perspective was. In the evening, the little princess specially made milk tea and enthusiastically invited the two Nodis elves to come and taste it together. She explained that it was milk tea she made with coconut milk without any dairy products. She also took the opportunity to give the cake recipe to Mary. The exchange between the two sides was very friendly. The little chick told Tasha to make more food for the two elves. That way, it could sense what they were really up to. The little princess fell ill. For the past 2 days, whenever she had free time, she would make food for the two Nodis elves. The result was that she exhausted herself. Hearing that she was ill, the emperor sent people with a pile of valuable rewards. Precious lace fabric, expensive silk, and a pair of music boxes said to be designed by a master. An attendant announced the various precious gifts with a proud look on his face. Suddenly, seeing Kano walk into the room, the atmosphere instantly fell silent. The attendant didn't dare to say another word. It happened again. Whenever Kano appeared, the atmosphere would become awkward. Tasha helplessly had the attendant leave first, then had a handmaiden go pour some tea. As Kano placed the flowers he brought into a vase, he asked Tasha, why do you seem not the least bit happy to receive gifts from His Majesty the Emperor? Tasha lowered her eyes and said, I'm not dissatisfied with the gifts. It's because of that person just now. As she spoke, a wave of sadness washed over her. He's afraid of you. But Kano looked as if he was already used to it. So what? Tasha hesitated. After a long while, she finally asked, have you ever thought, what if your spirit wasn't a death spirit? Kano shook his head without hesitation. He had never thought about it. Without the death spirit, he wouldn't have been able to win the war. Without it, after he became vice commander, his subordinates wouldn't have been so obedient. And without the death spirit, the war would have only dragged on longer. A flicker of struggle crossed Tasha's face. Then, she firmly grasped Kano's hand. Although this special identity had always caused Kano great pain, it also brought him power power and reverence. This was also the reason he chose to guard this secret alone. But she hoped that her next words could bring Kano new hope. The little princess spoke solemnly. Kano, your spirit isn't actually a death spirit. The little princess told Kano with a serious face, your spirit isn't a death spirit, but a time spirit. Seeing that Kano didn't seem to believe her, Tasha placed a flower in Kano's hand and told him to use his ability on it. Kano clenched his fist around the flower for just a few seconds, then opened his palm. The flower had reverted to a tender bud. The sick little princess's head grew fuzzy, and she had little strength left. She still struggled to tell Kano, the ability you possess is very precious. It can make life bloom like a flower. After saying this, she could no longer hold on and collapsed. Kano scrambled up in alarm to check on her. At night, the young man came to the courtyard. He placed the bud from his hand back into the soil and used his ability again. The flower instantly burst from the soil. The young man stared in shock at the scene before him. So the spirit he possessed wasn't death, but new life. A few days later, the little princess sighed softly. Kano had sent flowers again. The little chick told her that the flowers carried the aura of Kano's spirit. It seemed he was adapting to his new ability. Tasha curiously asked the chick, why haven't you been reminding me to hold Kano's hand more lately? The chick replied with a look of confusion, because even if I don't say it, you're already doing it. This caused Tasha to immediately deny it loudly. The chick told Tasha that the more she came into contact with Kano, the more he would be able to sense his own spirit. This way, one day, he'll be able to talk to his own spirit. Kano's spirit is still very weak right now, because it has used too much power, so Tasha can't see it. As long as Kano can use his ability flexibly and become stronger, the spirit will appear. That way, the little chick will also be able to, through Tasha, see Kano's spirit. Tasha curiously asked the chick, why are you in such a hurry to see Kano's spirit? The little chick, however, had an expression that said, heaven's secrets must not be revealed. A handmaiden suddenly came to inform her that His Majesty the Emperor wished to see the little princess. After Tasha freshened up, she was led by the handmaiden to the Emperor's side. Unexpectedly, the first thing the Emperor asked Tasha was, when did you become able to converse with spirits? Tasha's heart sank instantly. After a moment, she decided to confess obediently. It was a few days after I stayed in the palace. The Emperor asked her if the Crown Prince's power starting to stabilize was also related to her. Tasha immediately shook her head. That must be the result of his own efforts. It has nothing to do with me. The Emperor didn't look angry. He asked Tasha with confusion, does the Crown Prince know that you can talk to spirits? Tasha hesitated before nodding. The Emperor was instantly displeased. The Crown Prince knows, but the Emperor, didn't know. Tasha explained, flustered, I originally wanted to confess to your Majesty, but she stammered for a long time, not knowing what to say next. The Emperor asked her coldly, were you planning to wait until the Crown Prince ascended the throne to tell me? Tasha, having been seen through, fell silent. The Emperor stated that he could hear Tasha's daily conversations with that little bird. You didn't tell me because you were afraid, weren't you? Afraid that if I knew you had this ability, I would groom you as a candidate for the succession? Tasha coquettishly touched the Emperor's hand. No, it's because I was afraid the Crown Prince would be sad. The Emperor's displeasure vanished in an instant. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The bond between you cousins is truly strong. The Emperor took Tasha's hand and led her to a door, saying he had a gift for her. You help a lot with this peace treaty. This is your reward. The Emperor slowly opened the door. Inside was a very warmly decorated kitchen, especially for making desserts. The little princess showed an amazed expression. The gift the Emperor had prepared for the little princess was a cozy dessert kitchen. He urged the little princess, who was standing at the door, to hurry in and see the gift. The little princess, however, thought the gift was in the kitchen. The Emperor must be testing my eye for finding gifts. She went inside and immediately saw a vase with a bow tied around it. It must be this. The little princess picked up the vase and gave the Emperor a brilliant smile. I like this very much. Thank you. The Emperor felt like he was about to crack. He helplessly took the vase and told Tasha, my gift to you is this kitchen. Tasha looked shocked. The Emperor said proudly, it was custom made to your height. If you don't like it. Tasha immediately cut in loudly, I really, really love it. This time, it was a genuine smile. The Emperor's expression softened as well. Tasha bounced around, looking all over the kitchen. The Emperor didn't disturb her enjoyment of this happiness. He left quietly. The Wind Spirit said proudly that it had guessed Tasha would definitely like it. The Emperor asked the Wind Spirit in confusion, why didn't you tell me that Tasha could talk to other spirits? The Wind Spirit stated that it respected Tasha's wishes. She didn't want you to know. This child is truly without desire or ambition. The Wind Spirit advised the Emperor to cherish Tasha well, or he would regret it. The next day, a handmaiden brought Ivan to Neelan to learn swordsmanship. Neelan was Tasha's maternal grandfather. The two had not yet acknowledged each other. Neelan observed Ivan for a good while and felt that he was indeed good material for swordsmanship. He had Ivan run a lap around the training grounds to see his stamina. As a result, after the handmaiden gave the order, Ivan finally started to run. Neelan was a bit speechless. After one lap, feeling it was enough, Neelan told Ivan to stop. He only stopped after the handmaiden nodded. Seeing Neelan's exasperated face, the handmaiden quickly explained, Ivan only takes orders from Her Highness, the little princess. The only reason he's listening to the handmaiden now is because Her Highness authorized her. Nealon could only sigh helplessly. He told Ivan to start tomorrow and to report here before 6 o'clock. But Ivan only looked at the handmaiden. Seeing that Nealon was about to lose his temper, the handmaiden quickly authorized Nealon. From now on, you are to listen to Lord Nealon. At this time, the little princess was having afternoon tea with the crown prince. The crown prince mentioned the matter of choosing a territory for Kano recently. Seeing the little princess's curious face, the crown prince explained, the Nadish tribe has promised to compensate the empire with a portion of their land. The royal family has decided to gift those lands to meritorious subjects as a reward. Kano's contributions were immense, so he will definitely be given first choice. The little princess's interest was piqued. She curiously asked which territory Kano would choose. In her heart, she guessed Kano would definitely choose Rumen. There were diamonds there, but the crown prince replied that he would probably choose Rini. The little princess felt as if she had been struck by lightning. The crown prince explained, Rini grows high-grade flax. It's a prosperous region. The little princess worriedly asked the crown prince, who will get Rumen? The crown prince thought for a moment. It will probably be given to Marquis Oleg. Although he's someone who isn't close to the royal family, rewards like this must be distributed evenly. The little princess felt a strong sense of crisis. She absolutely could not let someone who wasn't close to the royal family get the diamond mine. She had to stop this from happening. The little princess would absolutely not allow the diamond mine to be taken by someone not close to the royal family. She was so agitated that she slammed the table and said loudly, I'm going to convince Kano to choose Rumen. The crown prince was stunned, seeing the little princess like this for the first time. The little princess also realized she had been too agitated. She explained flusteredly, I just happened to have something to discuss with Kano, so I thought I'd mention this to him along the way. The crown prince chuckled. Tasha used to be quite afraid of Kano. Now you're actually going to see him on your own initiative. Tasha quickly denied it, but a blush spread across her face. The crown prince had a knowing look. I see. I'll have him come over tomorrow afternoon then. But is there something you need to see him about that you can't tell me? Tasha announced loudly that she was going to team up with Kano to oppose the crown prince's tyrannical behavior. At the banquet to welcome the peace ambassador, you insisted on having Kano come get me. He's been complaining to me that he's suffering from your torment. The crown prince looked surprised, but at the time, it was clearly Kano's own idea. The little princess was stunned. Her face instantly flushed bright red. So Kano want to come get me himself back then? The crown prince asked with a gossipy expression. What else did Kano say at the time? But Tasha refused to say any more. Annoyed and embarrassed, she told the crown prince to summon Kano tomorrow. The crown prince nodded repeatedly in agreement. In the afternoon, Tasha invited the chef to visit her little kitchen. The head chef habitually started helping out. Tasha planned to make a pound cake today. With the head chef's help, the cake was soon out of the oven. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A woman with a haggard face walked in. It was the woman who had signed the beauty cake agreement with Tasha. The head chef almost didn't recognize her. This was the usually high-spirited Aogia. Aogia tremblingly handed the chocolate to the little princess. Tasha curiously asked her what was wrong. It turned out Aogia couldn't find a pastry chef. Those people were unwilling to swallow their pride to work for others. They also refused to use someone else's recipes. Most importantly, they didn't want to sign a confidentiality agreement. The little princess comforted her, telling her to cheer up. I just happened to make a cake. Why don't we have some tea and relax? Tasha reached for the teacups in the cabinet. Aogia's jaw dropped in shock when she saw the tea set. This was the legendary tea set personally made by Marathi, with only 10 sets in the entire world. Seeing the head chef's confused expression, Aogia proudly explained the various details and patterns on the tea set to him. This was her area of expertise. The little princess didn't care about these things, but it was good that Aogia was cheering up. Then let's use this to make tea. Aogia hesitated. This tea set should be put on display. The little princess's eyes sparkled with anticipation. I really want to have tea and cake with you all right now, don't you? Aogia immediately gave in. The little princess happily served the head chef and Aogia the cake she made herself. The two were once again amazed by the little princess's skills. After finishing the dessert, the little princess was in a hurry to see Kano. She left after saying she would help Aogia find a pastry chef, leaving the head chef and Aogia alone and awkward in the kitchen. Aogia said there was something else she hadn't had a chance to tell the little princess. I have a feeling someone is trying to obstruct our shop's opening, but she couldn't be sure yet. She would wait until she found evidence. After changing her clothes and redoing her hair, Tasha was sitting on the grass in the courtyard, waiting for Kano. Before long, Kano walked over. He sat down beside the little princess. Tasha felt inexplicably awkward. She hadn't seen him since she confessed the truth about the spirit to Kano. Kano glanced at Tasha. He used his magic to make the flower in his hand bloom instantly. Then he placed the flower on the little princess's head. Kano asked Tasha for a favor. He asked her not to tell anyone else about his spirit, in case some people think a time spirit can reverse time and make them young again. This would bring him unnecessary trouble. Besides, although the Empire has reached a peace agreement with the Nadish tribe, there are still opposition factions within their ranks. So it's better for Kano's spirit to maintain the persona of a death spirit. The little princess reluctantly nodded in agreement. She didn't want Kano to bear all this alone, but she also respected his choice. Thinking of something, the little princess asked curiously why Kano hadn't come to see her recently. Kano explained that after he learned the true nature of his spirit, he discovered many previously unknown powers, so he had been busy practicing and adapting. The little princess stared at Kano with dissatisfaction. "You could have at least written me a letter." Kano nodded repeatedly in agreement. "But why did you ask for me today?" The little princess then remembered her purpose. She eagerly urged Kano, "Kano, do me a favor." The little princess asked Kano to help her recruit someone he knew who was close and reliable. Kano was a bit helpless. Tasha had urgently summoned him, only to ask for help with recruitment, and it wasn't like he could find a suitable candidate at a moment's notice. Tasha explained that she was collaborating on a project with Baron Sarato. A dessert shop would be opening soon. It would specialize in selling the chocolate cake she makes. The problem was that they couldn't find a pastry chef. Kano said that the people he knew were all comrades in arms. Even retired soldiers had no experience making desserts. Tasha felt the cake recipe was very simple. It would be easy to master with a little practice. She had no other requirements. She just wanted to find an honest and reliable person. The reason she asked Kano for help was that she felt Kano's judgment of character would definitely be right. Hearing this, a blush appeared on Kano's face. He helplessly agreed. The little princess suddenly remembered something more important, but she didn't know how to persuade Kano to choose the territory of Rumen. She decided to be direct. "For the territory this time, why don't you choose Rumen?" Unexpectedly, Kano agreed with a nod without any hesitation. This reaction stunned the little princess. She asked uncertainly, "Are you sure?" Kano nodded affirmatively that it's just a wasteland there. "If it's given to me, at least you and Marquis Oleg should be very happy, right?" Tasha wanted to say that although it looked like a wasteland, there was a diamond mine inside. But she couldn't say that the spirit told her. Tasha could only hold her tongue. "Anyway, you'll definitely thank me for this in the future." Kano helplessly said he understood. After leaving the palace, Kano took a carriage to a certain place. He tried knocking on the door. A short-haired woman came out. Seeing the commander of the guard coming to find her, the woman was stunned. Kano said he wanted to recommend a job to her. Sophie's arrival made the little princess overjoyed. She immediately pulled Sophie along to practice making cookies. While washing her hands, Sophie hesitantly removed her glove. Her right hand was revealed to be made of wood, but the little princess didn't mind at all. The two quickly finished the cookies. Tasha was very satisfied with the result. She generously praised Sophie's skills as excellent. The taste was also perfect, but Sophie wasn't happy at all. She hesitated before saying to Tasha, "You should reconsider this." The little princess froze on the spot. The little princess had finally found a pastry chef, but Sophie wanted to refuse the little princess due to her low self-esteem. She herself was not a professionally trained pastry chef. Moreover, her missing hand was made of wood. Although she was very grateful to Tasha for giving her this opportunity, Sophie was more worried that she would cause trouble for Tasha. Tasha took the initiative to hold Sophie's hand and express her view. "The person I'm looking for is someone honest and reliable. You completely meet my requirements." Sophie looked touched. The little princess asked her if she would leak her secret recipe or she would try to cut corners. Sophie shook her head frantically. Tasha smiled broadly. "See, you're the person I'm looking for." Kano, who was at the side, also encouraged Sophie. "You have to try things first to know if you can do them." In the end, Sophie nodded and agreed to join. The little princess was so happy she could fly. The two quickly signed the contract. The next day, Marquis Oleg and Kano were waiting outside the hall for an audience with the emperor. The Marquis stole a glance at Kano beside him. Although he was about the same age as his own daughter, perhaps because of the death spirit, he always gave off an ominous feeling. He had already heard that Kano had chosen the wasteland of Rumen for his reward this time. He couldn't figure out what this young man was planning. The Marquis asked suspiciously, "Do you really want Rumen?" Kano nodded without hesitation. The Marquis's heart grew even more flustered. "You let me have the territory of Rini. Do you have some ulterior motive?" Kano sighed helplessly. Then he put on a straight face and retorted, "If I really did have an ulterior motive, what could you do about it?" This tone made the Marquis nervous. After all, Kano was the one with the death spirit. Kano explained, "I chose Rumen simply because Princess Tasha wished for me to do so. That's all." The Marquis was full of questions. Was the reason really that simple? A guard suddenly informed the two that they could enter the hall. Kano told the Marquis not to overthink it. "Also, I wish your child a speedy recovery." The Marquis was stunned in surprise. Meanwhile, the little princess wanted to go out and see the dessert shop. She went to the crown prince full of confidence, asking him to approve her leaving the palace. But she returned dejectedly. The crown prince was worried about her going out alone and absolutely refused. The little princess then set her sights on the emperor. She was confident she would succeed this time. After all, she wasn't the heir to the throne, nor did she hold any important position. But she returned dejectedly again. They were all worried she would encounter danger if she left the palace and absolutely refused. Although under her persistence, her grandfather the emperor relented a little. But the emperor told Tasha she must agree to one condition. "You're a royal grandchild. After all, you must have a personal guard by your side. You must choose a knight to protect your safety. Only then can I agree to let you go out." The emperor required the little princess to find a knight to accompany her before she could leave the palace. Her first thought was Ivan, but the handmaiden immediately rejected the idea. Ivan is just a trainee, not a proper knight yet. How can he be responsible for the little princess's safety? The handmaiden suggested asking the little princess's maternal grandfather to find a reliable knight for her. But Tasha loudly refused. What if His Majesty the Emperor misunderstands and thinks my grandfather and I are forming a faction? The handmaiden thought the little princess was overthinking it, that he's your grandfather. He can definitely pick a suitable knight for you. But that was precisely why Tasha didn't want to ask her grandfather. The little chick asked her in confusion, "Why are you always worrying about useless things?" He was certain the Emperor wouldn't misunderstand Tasha over such matters. Tasha was just worrying about imaginary fears. And the Crown Prince and Kano too. Why do you always think they'll harm you? Of course, it was because in the novel, everyone wanted her dead. Although the current situation was indeed different from the plot in Tasha's memory, she couldn't help but worry. The little chick seemed to have sensed something. He advised Tasha, "There's no need to be troubled by illusions. You are your own master. Don't be troubled by mirage-like illusions anymore." Tasha was stunned. She had never told the chick about the novel, but she always felt like he knew everything. The chick's words made Tasha see things differently. She grabbed the chick and asked him to run an errand. "Just give this letter I wrote to Kano and run." The little chick refused, as if he'd rather die. Tasha lightly said, "3 butter cookies." The chick quieted down, flapping its wings. It immediately flew off to deliver the message, learning that Tasha wanted Knight Kano to accompany her out of the palace. The handmaiden nervously advised Tasha not to get too close to Lord Kano. That power of his might inadvertently harm those around him. The handmaiden was very worried about the little princess's safety. She explained incoherently that she wasn't saying Kano was a bad person. Tasha smiled and replied, "You can't blame a rose for having thorns." The handmaiden was speechless. The little princess was probably the only one who would compare Kano to a rose. Tasha smiled even more happily. They're both beautiful. The rose is beautiful, and so is Kano. Kano, who was considered an ominous person, was reprimanded by his father as soon as he got home. He believed Kano shouldn't have given up Rini to choose the Baron Rumen. Kano remained expressionless. "I asked this all you wanted to see me about?" His father lost the courage to question him. He was truly afraid of this son who possessed the death spirit. Kano bluntly told him to pack his bags and go back to the main estate. On his way upstairs, he ran into his mother. She insisted on asking Kano why he chose Rumen. Kano replied, as if it were obvious, "I used my merits to earn the right to choose. Do I need to explain it to you?" His mother instantly lost the courage to question him too. On the stairs, he encountered a housemaid. The maid accidentally bumped into Kano and dropped the bedsheets all over the floor. She apologized to Kano in terror. Kano sighed helplessly and told the maid to leave. These people were still afraid just at the sight of him. Back in his room, Kano saw the chick waving at him. He saw a letter tied to the chick's leg. It seemed the little princess had something to tell him. Meanwhile, Barely, who was full of bad intentions, was thinking about how to pull Alec from the crown prince's seat. An attendant brought a piece of news. The little princess was collaborating with Baron Sarato to open a chocolate cake shop. He heard the cake was even made by the little princess herself. Barely didn't believe it at all. What kind of cake can 10-year-old make? It's obviously a ploy by Baron Sarato to curry favor with the royal family. Barely suddenly realized that Baron Sarato's move meant he was preparing to side with the crown prince. The attendant explained that the Baron hadn't been in contact with the crown prince, but he frequently interacted with the little princess. Barely told his attendant with displeasure. The crown prince dotes on the little princess like a doll. Having the Baron flatter the little princess means he wants to join the crown prince's faction. Barely gritted his teeth unwillingly. Those who support the crown prince have no idea that his relationship with the fire spirit is unstable. Since Baron Sarato wants to pull a stunt right under my nose, I'll help him with some opening day publicity. Barely loudly told his attendant to fetch someone. Kano had already been waiting at the palace gate for the little princess for a long time. Just as he was wondering why Tasha hadn't come yet, the little princess finally appeared. She ran wildly towards Kano. Lifting her skirt, she explained that the clothes in her wardrobe were too fancy. It took her a long time to find this simple one. The handmaiden asked Kano to take good care of the little princess today. Kano nodded and told her not to worry. It's been a long time since I left the palace. Tasha couldn't help but sigh. The streets were still so bustling with people. Kano was a bit speechless. He had rushed over as soon as he got the little princess's message, thinking it was something important. It turned out she just wanted him to be her guard. The little princess said matter-of-factly, "What I wrote was clearly, if you're going out on the street recently, could you take me with you?" Kano resignedly led the little princess towards the dessert shop. Someone suddenly bumped into Tasha. Tasha stumbled and was about to fall. Kano caught her in his arms and told Tasha to be careful. It was such a heart-fluttering scene, but Tasha's attention was elsewhere. After thanking Kano, she ran towards a nearby fruit stall, marveling that the candies in the jar were sparkling like diamonds. The stall owner took out a piece of candy and enthusiastically offered Tasha a taste. Tasha delightedly accepted the candy, but Kano snatched it away and popped it into his own mouth. He commented that the candy was too sweet as he ate it. Tasha was stunned. Kano clearly doesn't like sweet things. He must have been afraid the food from a stranger was poisoned, so he deliberately deliberately tasted it first. In order not to hurt the stall owner's feelings, he wasn't too direct about it. After confirming there was no problem, Kano bought a jar of candy and gave it to Tasha. Tasha tasted one and turned to Kano with a happy smile that it's delicious. At this time in the palace, Tasha's grandfather, Commander Neelan, rushed to see the Emperor, asking if he had conveyed his message. The Emperor was slightly taken aback. Neelan had always been a loyal subject. When his daughter secretly entered a marriage contract with the former crown prince, he had even threatened to disown her. Why was he acting so impolitely today? The Emperor said that he had told Tasha she must take a personal guard if she wanted to go out. Neelan questioned His Majesty why the little princess hadn't come to him. The Emperor explained that Tasha had specifically requested Kano as her guard, and there was nothing he could do to in the entire country. No one is stronger than Kano. Neelan looked skeptical. Why would Kano act as the little princess's guard? The Emperor asked him, since you're so curious, why don't you ask Tasha yourself? Neelan looked dejected. Isn't it because I can't do it myself that I asked Your Majesty to help convey my message? Moreover, although he hadn't said it outright, the reason he entered the palace to serve as the commander of the knights this time was also because of the little princess. The Emperor saw right through Neelan that you're afraid that child will hate you, aren't you? The two of us are not awkward, even when we're alone. Hearing that the Emperor actually met with the little princess often, Neelan was extremely jealous. The Emperor advised him that it would be best to sincerely apologize to Tasha. I'm sure that child will forgive you. Kano brought the little princess to the dessert shop. The little princess planned to buy some desserts to bring to the crown prince and her grandfather, the Emperor. The handmaiden reminded her, should you also get one for your grandfather? Tasha hesitated that I haven't even met him yet. And even if we did meet, he wouldn't be very happy. Kano suddenly leaned in and asked Tasha, are you talking about Lord Neelan? Tasha was startled. In the novel, he tried to seize the throne and was tortured in every way by Kano and the crown prince. Her grandfather's position in the palace would be at risk. She had to emphasize as much as possible in front of Kano that the two of them were not close. The handmaiden tried to explain that Lord Neelan was very fond of the little princess. Tasha quickly stuffed a piece of candy into her mouth and strode away, leaving Kano and the handmaiden looking at her back with question marks on their faces. Outside the dessert shop, a huge crowd of people had gathered. The little princess and the others were stunned. What on earth was going on? The handmaiden took the initiative to go and find out, telling the little princess to wait there. Tasha was a little worried. Did something happen at the shop? Kano suddenly spoke up and asked Tasha, you really hate your grandfather, don't you? Tasha quickly said she didn't hate him, but she couldn't explain much. Was she supposed to confess? It's because I'm afraid you'll misunderstand me because of him. Kano asked in confusion, if you don't hate him, why don't you see him? And asking me to be your guard this time was completely bypassing someone closer for someone further away. Tasha stubbornly explained, I just wanted to come out and have fun with you. This direct answer made Kano's cheeks flush. Not noticing Kano's reaction, the little princess promised him that she would bring a piece of cake for her grandfather too. Before long, the handmaiden who went to gather information came running back, out of breath. It turned out those people were all lining up to buy cake. Apparently, a noble lady had eaten it and praised it endlessly, so everyone flocked here after hearing about it. The little princess was relieved. She quickly got in line with the two of them to buy cake. After getting 5 chocolate cakes, Tasha had originally planned to visit Sophie, but it looked like she would be very busy today, so she decided not to bother her. Just as the little princess was about to leave with Kano and the handmaiden, an angry roar came from behind them. Are you kidding me? What does this taste? The little princess really didn't expect someone to come and cause trouble. A woman dressed all in black, wearing a hat that hid her face, angrily threw the cake she had just bought on the ground. She questioned the staff. Why does the cake have a strange taste? It seems like there's something dirty inside. How dare you sell such a low-quality product? People in the crowd started to follow her lead, murmuring that the cake did taste strange and its color looked dirty. The little princess directly picked up the cake from the ground and put it in her mouth without hesitation. Kano and the handmaiden were shocked. They both urged Tasha to spit it out quickly. Tasha chewed for a moment and swallowed the cake. She stared disapprovingly at the woman who was deliberately causing trouble. There's nothing wrong with the taste of this cake. Why are you causing trouble for the dessert shop? The woman wanted to say more, but the little princess interrupted her, loudly declaring, not only is the cake not strange, it's actually delicious. The woman stubbornly argued that the cake's flavor was simply bad. Besides, the pastry chef in this shop is a retired deserter. That's probably why the desserts taste so strange. The little princess, furious, stepped forward to push the woman. She was pulled back by the handmaiden. Kano, with a grim face, asked the woman, how much were you paid? When the woman refused to say, Kano told her to inform her employer that this wouldn't work. Under Kano's powerful aura, the woman scurried away. In a carriage back to the palace, Tasha was very worried that the woman's words would affect Sophie. Kano told her not to worry. Sophie is not a deserter. She won't care about such rumors. Despite this, the little princess was still angry. She didn't notice Kano beside her, looking at her with a doting expression. A few days later, the crown prince invited Tasha to see an opera. The handmaiden helped Tasha dress up beautifully. She also took out the shoes Kano had sent. Tasha tried them on, and they were a perfect fit. She just couldn't understand why Kano would send her shoes. Before long, the Crown Prince came to pick up Tasha for the opera house. Outside the opera house, people saw the two of them looking so close and remarked, "The Crown Prince and the little princess have such a good relationship." Inside the theater, Tasha watched with great interest. This was her first time seeing an opera. While watching, she even discussed it with the Crown Prince. The brown-haired girl in the middle of the choir sings really well. The Crown Prince nodded in agreement, but Tasha felt like she had seen this girl somewhere before. She summoned the sleeping chick to help her see who the familiar-looking girl was. The chick opened its eyes in confusion and looked over. One look, and it was instantly wide awake. Isn't that the woman who caused a scene at the dessert shop a few days ago? Tasha was also shocked. So that female customer was an opera singer. Tasha covered her mouth tightly with both hands, her eyes filled with shock. The brown-haired actress on stage was actually the customer who had caused a scene at the patisserie that day. At this moment, the performance on stage had come to an end. All the performers bowed together for the curtain call. The heavy velvet curtains slowly closed. Tasha abruptly stood up. "Tasha." The Crown Prince called out her name with a confused look. Tasha turned and walked quickly towards the door. Without looking back, she said, "Alec, I'm going to see that brown-haired actress," leaving the Crown Prince behind, shouting in astonishment. "What?" Tasha, who had chased after her, looked around. The cold wind swirled snowflakes past her cheeks. She muttered to herself, "Strange, I clearly saw her come this way. Where did she go?" Suddenly, a warm cape was gently draped over her shoulders. Tasha turned around. The Crown Prince was standing behind her, his tone laced with reprimand. "Tasha, it's so cold outside. Why did you run out without even wearing a coat?" "It's okay. I'll go back after I see her," Tasha said, pulling the cape tighter. "I've already sent my men to call her over. She should be here soon," the Crown Prince said, reaching out to tie the cape's collar for her, making a firm knot. "You just wait here obediently. Don't run around anymore." As soon as he finished speaking, the brown-haired actress hurried over. She clearly hadn't expected Tasha to be the one waiting. She spoke with a hint of caution. "Steward, how did you find me here? I said I wouldn't do that kind of thing again. Not even for more money. Please stop pestering me." But before she could finish speaking, her gaze fell upon Tasha's shoes. Her eyes slowly traveled up from the tips of the shoes. When she clearly saw Tasha and the Crown Prince standing before her, she froze on the spot. "I'm not the steward you're looking for," Tasha said calmly, looking directly at her. "Aren't you the one who caused a scene at the patisserie the other day?" The woman trembled all over, quickly shaking her head in denial, and "Oh, it wasn't me." "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Just then, a child's tender call came from not far away. "Mama." A little boy with blonde hair ran over, his little face red from the cold, full of excitement. "Mama, today's performance was amazing." The woman was clearly flustered. She pulled the boy in her arms and said in a hushed voice, "Nick, come here quickly." The little boy was wearing thin clothes, his nose running from the cold. His small body shivered slightly in the cold wind, his big eyes staring warily at her. Tasha's heart stirred. Is this her child? To be dressed so thinly on such a cold day. As she was pondering, the woman suddenly dropped to her knees before Tasha with a thud, her voice choked with sobs that "I'm sorry, miss. Please don't hurt my child." This sudden action startled Tasha, who quickly took a step back, at a loss for what to do. A moment later, Tasha and the woman were sitting on a bench by the street. The woman covered her mouth, sobbing, and explained intermittently, "I really don't know who the mastermind is. I don't know who that steward was either. He just told me to go to the shop in trance and shout that the cake was made by a deserter and tasted strange. He said he'd pay me after I did it." Tasha listened quietly, her gaze falling across the way. The little boy was holding a lantern, standing on his tiptoes and waving in their direction. "Mama." The woman looked up, giving the boy a strange smile and a wave. When she turned her head back, her eyes dimmed again, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm 2 months behind on rent. In this cold weather, I can't even afford to buy my child a decent set of clothes. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done something like that." Hearing this, Tasha stood up from the bench and said lightly, "Forget it. There's no point in holding it against you." She took 2 steps forward, then suddenly stopped and turned to look at the woman. "Dappy, by the way, where is your husband?" A sorrowful look appeared in the woman's eyes. She paused before saying, "After I became pregnant with Nick, he disappeared." Hearing this, Tasha fell silent again. She rubbed her hands together and said, "The reason I was able to recognize you is because your performance was truly outstanding." The woman was stunned, blurting out, "What?" "To be honest, although you're just a member of the chorus now, your skills are no worse than the lead actress's," Tasha said. A pair of warm, fluffy woolen gloves in her hand and pressed them into the woman's hands that's gotten a bit warmer. "Winter is almost over, and it's not so cold tonight. These gloves are actually a bit too warm to wear." The woman held the gloves, which still retained Tasha's warmth. She stood up in a panic. "Miss, wait," she said, about to return the gloves. Just then, the Crown Prince happened to walk over. He blocked her way with his hand. The woman quickly explained, "This young lady left her gloves here. The crown prince glanced at the gloves. Understanding the situation, he said to her, "You should keep these. You can also take the pearls on them and exchange them for money." After a pause, the crown prince's expression turned cold, his gaze sharp. "That I'll ask you. The steward who hired you, does he have a scar under his eye?" A scar?" the woman repeated. After a moment's hesitation, she recalled, "I think, below his left eye, there was indeed a small scar like a wrinkle." After hearing this, the crown prince understood completely. He turned his gaze to Tasha and said slowly, "All right, she has your forgiveness, so I won't question her further. It's a good thing you didn't try to deceive her just now. Otherwise, things wouldn't have ended so easily." With that, he turned and left with Tasha, leaving the woman holding the warm gloves, watching their figures gradually disappear into the wind and snow. Back at the palace, Pippi flapped its small wings and landed on the corner of the table, saying, "That woman has the scent of Plasti on her." "Oh, Plasti?" The silver spoon in Tasha's hand stopped abruptly. Her eyes were filled with shock. "That the fragment of sin?" Pippi nodded, its little head up and down. "Yes. Could it be that Joya is hiding Plasti on her?" Tasha pressed. "No," Pippi said, shaking its wings, "that IT should be someone she came into contact with. The aura was too faint before, so I didn't notice it at the body tree that day. But my power has been slowly recovering recently. Yesterday at the theater, I could clearly feel it." "Your power is recovering? Really?" A look of pleasant surprise appeared on Tasha's face. "It's all thanks to you, Tasha." Pippi's voice chirped with excitement. Kano can now have simple conversations with his spirit. Tasha poked at the dessert on her plate with one hand and rested her chin on the other, asking, "But what does that have to do with your power recovering?" "Well, you see, the time spirit and I are evenly matched," Pippi explained, its little claws picking at a piece of cake. "When his power increases, my power also has to increase to maintain the balance." Tasha finally understood, muttering to herself, "No wonder you were always so interested in Kano. So that's why." She thought for a moment, then asked, "Could it be that someone in the opera company has Plasti?" Pippi tilted its head and thought for a moment. "Doesn't seem like it. I think it's more likely the mastermind, because Plasti gives a person the power to easily suppress others. Then if I can get the mastermind to eat a dessert I made, will things get better?" Tasha asked, remembering what she had done to Ivan, a glimmer of hope in her eyes, just like what I did to Ivan. "Of course," Pippi mumbled indistinctly while nibbling on the cake. "After he eats the dessert, you can leave the rest to me." It paused, then suddenly looked up and asked, "Tasha, do you already know who the mastermind is?" Before she could finish, a guard's announcement came from outside the door. "Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived." Tasha turned her head toward the door in surprise. Why would Grandpa suddenly come over? Soon, His Majesty the Emperor was seated at the dining table, holding a teacup. Sipping it slowly, Tasha pushed the dessert she had just made in front of him, complaining a little. "This is all your fault, Grandpa." His Majesty the Emperor looked up, a look of innocence on his face. "What are you talking about?" Tasha sat down across from him, her tone certain. "You must have heard from Alec. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come looking for me specifically." His Majesty the Emperor coughed twice, hiding his embarrassment at being found out. After a pause, he said, "Yes, I know it was Barely's idea, but how can you blame me? Are you blaming me for not raising my children well?" "No," Tasha immediately retorted. Her voice cleared. "I'm talking about Joya." "Joya?" His Majesty the Emperor looked bewildered. The steward beside him quickly leaned in and explained in a low voice, "Your Majesty, that is the name of the opera's singer." Tasha continued, "She did that foolish thing because she was truly desperate. And that's my fault too." His Majesty the Emperor said helplessly. "She is your subject," Tasha said, looking directly at him. "She made a mistake because she was forced by her circumstances. Does that really have nothing to do with you?" Hearing this, His Majesty the Emperor sighed softly. "It seems it is indeed my problem." "Yes," Tasha nodded. "So please, you must find Nick's father." "Nick?" His Majesty the Emperor was stunned again. The steward once again stepped forward to whisper a reminder to Joya's son. "Your Majesty." His Majesty the Emperor then said, "All right, I will find him. After I find him, what do you want me to do with him?" "Make him pay Joya child support," Tasha said while scooping up some cake. "Since he's unwilling to raise his child, he should at least pay compensation." As she spoke, she suddenly paused her spoon, frowning. What if he agrees verbally, but then keeps defaulting on the payment?" His Majesty the Emperor picked up the napkin beside him. He gently wiped the cake crumbs from the corner of her mouth, smiling. "Then I will advance Nick's child support payments. Afterward, I will personally collect the debt from him." "I imagine he wouldn't dare to default on a debt to the Emperor, would he?" "Wow, that's great." Tasha's face immediately lit up with a smile. She pushed the cake closer to him. "Grandpa, hurry and try this." His Majesty the Emperor watched her joyful appearance, thinking to himself, she just let the matter of that opera singer causing a scene go so easily. Looking at Tasha in front of him, holding the cake with a beaming smile, his eyes filled with affection. This child is just too soft-hearted after all. In the dining hall the next day, Tasha was arranging her cooking utensils, saying, "Today, I'm going to make pancakes and strawberry preserves." She poured milk into a saucepan while explaining, "First, heat the milk, then add flour, yeast, and fine sugar, and knead it into a dough. While the dough is rising, we'll make the strawberry preserves. Add a little lemon juice to make it sweet and sour. Finally, bake the risen dough, and the delicious pancakes are done. Isn't it simple? Kano, would you like to try?" Kano stood with his hands in his pockets, raising an eyebrow. Why should I? By the way, do you always make this many sweets? Every time you're in a bad mood. Tasha looked at the mountain of desserts piled on the table and scratched her head in embarrassment. Haha, it does seem like a bit much. Then she retorted, but I'm in a super good mood right now. Who said I'm upset? Alex said so, Kano said, staring at her. Besides, your expression already gave you away. Tasha turned her head away, muttering, what are you talking about? Did you come to the palace just because I was in a bad mood? Kano bent down, bringing his line of sight level with hers. Why are you unhappy? Is it because of that opera singer? Her secret thoughts exposed, Tasha whipped her head around, only to bump right into him. For the instant their foreheads touched, they both froze. Kano's voice sounded from inches away. Tell me, what's really wrong? Tasha took a step back, her cheeks slightly flushed. Then you have to promise me first. You're not allowed to laugh at me. Kano crossed his arms and nodded, signaling for her to continue. Tasha tossed the dessert in her hand into a bowl and said in a low voice, it's nothing, really. It's just that someone said my dessert wasn't good. My family wasn't well off before. It was only after coming to the palace that I could finally make desserts as I pleased. All of you have only ever praised my desserts. This is the first time someone has said they were bad. She was bribed. She didn't mean it. Kano interrupted her. That's not the point. Tasha raised her voice, giving a serious example that if you asked the soldiers in the army to evaluate you as a person amidst a pile of compliments, what if someone half-jokingly said something bad about you? Deputy Commander, sir, why are you always so stern? Pretending to be cool like that is really annoying. If those words were heard by someone with ill intentions, what would happen? If a lie is told enough times, it becomes the truth. Imagine if hundreds of fake knives were thrust at you at the same time. Would you be unharmed? Kano remained silent, seeming to consider it seriously. That's how I feel right now. Tasha sighed, that I know you wouldn't understand. Being baselessly accused is indeed unpleasant, Kano said after a thought, his tone somewhat flat. But I'm not a likable person to begin with, so I can't really understand why you care so much. What? Tasha suddenly raised her voice, startling Kano. What why? Why do you think you're not likable? Tasha stared at him. Kano replied calmly, everyone is afraid of me. How could they like me? How can you fear and like someone at the same time? Of course you can. Tasha retorted loudly. Even if you were a terrifying person, if you saved my life in a war, I would still like you. Besides, if everyone knew the true nature of your spirit, I'm sure more people would like you. Though that's still a secret for now. Kano looked skeptical. How can you be so sure? Because it's the truth, Tasha said, full of conviction. Seeing her earnest expression, Kano suddenly let out a low laugh, his tone carrying a hint of teasing. Could it be that Her Highness the Grand Princess likes me too much, and that's why she thinks this way? Tasha's face instantly turned as red as a ripe apple. She felt hot all over. She quickly turned around, her back to him, and huffed. Who likes you? I'm very scared of you, you know. Oh, is that so? Kano teased from behind her. In that case, I was going to read you a letter, but I guess I'll just forget it. A letter? Tasha whipped her head back around, her eyes shining. Did you write it to me? No, it was sent to the Bodhisattva, Kano said, pulling a letter from his pocket and waving it in front of her. A customer absolutely loved your cake and wrote a special thank you letter. Sophie asked me to give it to you. He smirked, deliberately holding the letter up high. Really? Give it to me, quickly. Tasha reached out to grab it. Aren't you afraid of me? How dare you ask for a letter I brought? Kano teased her. Kano, you idiot. Who will be afraid of you? You're not scary at all. Tasha jumped up to snatch it. As they were pulling and tugging, the saucepan on the table suddenly wobbled and was about to fall. Watch out. With quick reflexes, Kano pulled Tasha into his arms to shield her. Clang! The pot of hot milk crashed to the floor, making a piercing noise. Kano let out a sigh of relief, his heart still pounding. That was close. Leaning against his chest, Tasha was also a bit shaken. Thank you, she whispered. Just then, she felt something poking her in the back. It was the letter in Kano's hand. Tasha's eyes darted. The moment he loosened his grip, she spun around and snatched the letter from his hand. The movement was as smooth as flowing water. Kano looked at his empty hand, momentarily speechless. Tasha eagerly tore open the envelope. The sender and recipient lines were blank, so she began to read it seriously. Dear Patissier, greetings. I'm a traveling artist. Recently, I returned to my hometown after many years and happened to pass by your shop. I was drawn in by the aroma and tasted your chocolate cake. The texture was as silky as a stream in paradise. The richness of the chocolate as pure as an angel's wing. The sweet and bitter notes intertwined. The crispy and soft textures merged. Everything was just right. After reading the letter, Tasha was so happy she nearly fainted. Luckily, Kano caught her. Tasha said excitedly. He actually said that as a reward for tasting such a delicious cake, he wants to paint a portrait of the pâtissier. Kano looked at her, overcome with joy, feeling both helpless and amused. Are you all right? I'm so happy. Tasha giggled, carefully putting the letter away. Kano, you must tell Sophie to agree, no matter what. Kano frowned, confused. What are you talking about? You invented the recipe for this cake. If anyone's portrait is to be painted, it should be yours. Tasha clutched the letter, stammering, but no buts. Kano cut her off. Sophie feels the same way. Just as he finished speaking, ring. A knocking sound, thump thump, came from the door. A guard's voice sounded from outside. Your Highness, the clothes His Majesty sent for you have arrived. Tasha's eyes lit up, and she quickly stood up. Right? I have things to attend to. Why would His Majesty suddenly send you clothes? Kano asked with a raised eyebrow. Because in 2 days, I'm going to attend the tea party at Marquis Tatari's estate, Tasha explained, her face full of anticipation. Kano looked at her, a hint of teasing in his tone that I didn't expect you to be able to attend external events on your own now. Choosing Marquis Tatari's tea party for your debut. Is it because his family praised your chocolate cake? Of course not. Tasha's cheeks instantly flushed. She stepped forward and lightly pounded Kano's arm with her small fist. It's because his daughter is the same age as me, you idiot Kano. Meanwhile, by the flower beds of the Tatari Marquis's residence. The Marquis was bent over, tending to the newly bloomed flowers. A maid approached with a tray of letters and reported softly, My lady, these are the letters received today. The Marquis took off her soil-stained gloves, glanced up, and couldn't help but be surprised. Heavens, why are there so many? She handed her straw hat and gloves to the maid and asked, Why do so many people suddenly want to attend our tea party? Yes, and they all applied so late. The maid also found it strange. The Marquis picked up a letter and looked through it, saying calmly, Let's just reject these late applications. I've heard that Her Highness, Grand Princess Astasia, usually stays in the palace and only keeps company with His Highness the Crown Prince. If the party has too many people, she might feel uncomfortable. A maid asked curiously, But why would Her Highness the Grand Princess suddenly want to attend our family's tea party? Another maid chimed in, I find it strange too. She's never attended this kind of event outside the palace before. The Marquis chuckled softly and said, I hear His Majesty dotes on his granddaughter. I suppose His Majesty has been reluctant to let his granddaughter tire herself out by going out. The maid asked again, In that case, why would His Majesty let her come to our house? Another maid guessed, could it be because of Lady Natalie? After all, the two of them are the same age. Hearing this, the Marquise, who was opening a letter, paused her actions and fell silent. The two maids exchanged a look and tactfully fell silent as well. After a moment, the Marquise spoke, her tone carrying a certain gravity. The day before the tea party, remember to put all of Natalie's toys in the warehouse, and put oil on the base of the walls and the treetops, so she can't climb them again. Yes, my lady. The maids hurriedly replied. The Marquis sighed with a worried expression. We can't let Natalie make a fool of herself in front of Her Highness the Grand Princess. She paused, then asked, by the way, does the house have any decent dresses that Natalie can wear? The maid hesitated and replied, My lady's dress. Her words trailed off, and she fell silent again. The Marquise let out a long, helpless sigh. I knew it. Go and prepare a new dress for her, and find out which dessert shop's pastries Her Highness likes best. I hear Her Highness is very fond of them. Yes, my lady. The two maids replied and withdrew. The next day, Tasha walked briskly down the hallway, carrying a basket of bright red, plump strawberries. She looked down at the fruit in her basket and muttered to herself, This is the last batch of strawberries for the year. I have to make good use of them. Pippi, flapping its small wings, flew closer to take a sniff and said excitedly, These strawberries look so fresh. They must be very sweet. Tasha smiled and nodded, pushing open the dining hall door. I plan to make strawberry tarts on the day of the tea party. I'm sure they'll be very popular if I bring them. Oh good, strawberry tarts. Pippi's eyes lit up and it circled around her. There's definitely a share for me, right? Tasha had just sat down at the dining table when a knock on the door immediately followed. Lise walked in, holding a letter. Your Highness, she said softly. So you were here. What is it, Lise? Tasha asked, looking up. Lise curtsied slightly. A decree has come from His Majesty. He says that before you attend the tea party, you must go to the night order to select an escort knight. What? Do I have to? Tasha's face fell instantly, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her. Yes, His Highness the Crown Prince also instructed the same. Lise added with a serious expression that, Alex said so too. Tasha became even more dejected when they told me to go to the tea party before. They never mentioned this. How can Her Highness the Grand Princess go out without an escort? Lise explained matter-of-factly. Could it be that without His Majesty's command, you were planning to go alone? She paused, as if suddenly remembering something. Right? Lord Kano asked me to pass this on to you. From Kano. A flicker of curiosity appeared in Tasha's eyes. She quickly took the letter. The paper unfolded, revealing sharp, neat handwriting. This seems to be the first time I've taken up a pen to write you a letter. I suggest you wear a fleece-lined cape as an overcoat when you attend the tea party. My grandmother will be coming to the imperial capital that day, and I need to go meet her. I'm afraid I won't have time to look after you. The letter ended there. Tasha blinked, puzzled, huh? That's it. She turned to look at Lise. Lise, did Kano really write this? Yes, Lord Kano handed it to me personally, Lise confirmed. Tasha pouted, muttering to herself, what's this all about? He was already here. Why didn't he just tell me in person? She clutched the letter letter, her mind full of confusion that it's one thing to emphasize that it's his first time writing a letter, but then he randomly recommends an overcoat. I really don't get what he's thinking. She suddenly thought of something, her cheeks growing slightly warm, that I kept asking Kano to be my escort before to avoid the night order. Was my intention too obvious? It does seem a bit obvious, Lise chimed in from the side. Tasha was silent for a moment, then let out a soft breath and stood up to walk outside. Let's go. HM, where are we going, Your Highness? Lise asked, confused. Where else could we go? Tasha shrugged helplessly. Of course. We're going to follow Grandpa's decree and go to the night order to choose an escort. In the hallway, his footsteps were as rapid as a drumbeat. Thump, 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 revealing an undisguised panic. She burst into the night order's training grounds and shouted, Commander, Her Highness Astasha is here. Neelan, who was sparring with a comrade, froze as if struck by lightning upon hearing this. The wooden sword in his hand stopped in midair. He stammered, W-H. He hurriedly grabbed a jacket from the side and threw it on, his fingers trembling. Why so sudden? If I had known, I would have dressed more formally. I heard Her Highness is here to select an escort knight, and added. Neelan stared at his wrinkled coat, his face falling. Oh no, how did this coat get so wrinkled? Ivan, standing beside him, quietly suggested, I'll take it to the laundry to get it taken care of. What? You don't want to be embarrassed in front of the master, Neelan said, shoving the coat at him with a slightly awkward tone. I'll be right back. Ivan took the coat and quickly ran off, and, watching from the side, couldn't help but shake her head. Commander, didn't you also come back specifically for His Highness Twilight? Why are you picking on Ivan? Who said that? Neelan immediately retorted. It's only because you refuse to be the commander. I have no choice. And shrugged. All right, you're right about everything. Just then, an announcement came from outside. Her Highness, Grand Princess Astasha, has arrived. Neelan and froze instantly, as if petrified. Tasha walked into the Dignice Knights and saw at a glance the knights standing in neat formation. Their presence was imposing. She sighed inwardly. This formation is a bit over the top. Lee stepped forward to explain their purpose. Commander Neelan, we would like to select 2 knights to serve as Her Highness's personal guards for an event in a few days. Tasha stood to the side, feeling the tense and serious atmosphere, and wondered to herself, did I interrupt their training? She composed herself. She greeted him a little shyly. Commander Neelan, hello. But Neelan looked at her with a dejected expression, a gloomy aura seemingly surrounding him. Tasha's heart pounded. What's with this dark aura? Did I use the wrong title? What should I call him? Pippi flew to her ear and whispered, why don't you call him what you call the landlord? I don't think so, Tasha whispered back. I've seen him a few times, but I've never spoken to him. See? The moment you called him Commander Neelan, that dark aura appeared, Pippi insisted. Tasha felt even more grieved. But I can't bring myself to say Grandpa either. She took a deep breath and changed the subject. So, are there any suitable candidates? I hope to bring Ivan. Neelan immediately shook his head. Ivan is not ready yet. Why not? Tasha raised her voice as well. He is still in training. He's not a true knight yet. He doesn't have the ability to protect Your Highness. Neelan said, waving a large hand towards the knights behind him. These are the top knights in our order. You can pick anyone you like. If you can't decide, before he could finish, and suddenly raised her hand and volunteered. I can do it. As a vice commander, I can also serve as a guard. Tasha looked at, and, finding her strangely familiar, Pippi promptly reminded her, she's the head chef's sister. Tasha looked her up and down. They really do look alike. She stepped forward and asked, are you and Pavel siblings? And was taken aback for a moment, then quickly coughed twice. Your Highness, how do you know Pavel? Pavel is the head chef at the palace. I interact with him often, Tasha said, her eyes curving into a smile. And you two look so much alike. I recognized you at a glance, and scratched her head, a little embarrassed. This is the first time anyone has said we look alike. Neelan cleared his throat, stepped in front of Anne, and looked at Tasha. Grand Princess, have you decided who to choose? Tasha cupped her chin and thought for a moment, muttering to herself. This one, maybe? The scene changes, in a room, and is leisurely polishing her equipment. With a click, the door was pushed open. Ivan walked in with a folded coat. I'm back. Neelan shot up to his feet and berated him. Why did you have to go to the laundry at such a crucial moment? Ivan looked bewildered. Commander, in daily training, even knights older than you are no match for you. Neelan's voice suddenly rose, roaring with a sense of frustrated disappointment. Why didn't you dare to show off your skills in front of the master? And, watching from the side, shook her head helplessly. What are you doing? Ivan was flustered by the scolding. Neelan grabbed his own clothes, chewing on the corner of the collar in frustration, his tone full of grievance. When Her Highness asked about you today, I could only say I sent you on a last-minute errand. As a result, Her Highness looked at me with nothing but disappointment. I'll go and explain to Her Highness, Ivan said quickly. Oh, Commander, you're overthinking it. And waved her hand and pulled Ivan to her side. Even if Her Highness didn't choose you, you can't take it out on the kid. I'm not taking it out on him, Nealon retorted, craning his neck. Ivan tilted his head and asked quietly, Her Highness didn't choose the commander? That's right, and nodded, then added, But the Grand Princess did it for the commander's own good. Nealon, like a wronged child, frowned and asked why. Don't try to comfort me. Oh, just listen to my explanation, and said helplessly, This tea party is Her Highness's first event outside the palace. So many eyes are watching. If you, as her maternal grandfather, personally act as her guard, some people with ulterior motives are bound to gossip and make remarks. What does it matter? I don't have any crooked ideas. Nealon was still unconvinced. And sighed. Those people don't care what you think. They only spread what they want to hear. After hearing this, Nealon instantly deflated, just sitting there sullenly, and added, Her Highness is really thoughtful and sensible. Ivan asked curiously, So who did Her Highness choose in the end? And blinked. She deliberately kept him in suspense. Well, the scene returns to the training ground from before. Tasha looked at the knights in formation. After a moment of silence, she said, Then I'll choose the vice commander. And her gaze swept over the back row and landed on a knight who was yawning. The man had a hint of impatience in his eyes, as if he had no interest in this selection process. Tasha pointed at him decisively. That one over there. The scene cuts back to the present. And beaming said, And that's what happened. Her Highness chose me. Nealon, beside them, pouted, his face full of displeasure, and ignored him. She continued, Her Highness has a great eye for people. Peternay usually focuses solely on his sword practice, never caring for fame or fortune. He's very low-key, but his swordsmanship is top-notch among the knights. I really don't know how Her Highness picked him out at a glance. Hearing this, Nealon's chin lifted slightly. He snorted with a hint of pride. Well, look whose granddaughter she is, and winked mischievously. Then why did Nealon abandon his own daughter back then? I did not. Nealon's temper flared instantly, his voice suddenly rising. The floodgates of memory burst open. That year, Nealon looked at his daughter, his face full of displeasure. Why are you suddenly getting married? And to the prince, no less. A shy blush appeared on Irina's face. Yes, she said seriously. Yuri and I are truly in love. Nealon shot to his feet, his tone agitated. So you're going to become princess? Irina nodded lightly. Nealon felt a tightness in his chest, full of frustration. But you're the strongest knight in the country. If you become a princess, how can you still wield a sword? He clenched his fists, his voice filled with pain. As a knight, your mission is to assist the royal family. Father, please listen to me. Irina also stood up, wanting to explain, but Nealon was furious and wouldn't listen. He turned to leave. I don't approve. Absolutely not. No matter how many times Irina called after him, he never looked back, storming out in anger. He had thought that his daughter would come to him to reconcile after a few days, but he never expected the Grand Prince to suddenly pass away from illness, and for his daughter to elope with Yuri. As the memory reached this point, Nealon's shoulders slumped. His voice was low and dejected. I just felt it was a pity for Irina's skills to go to waste like that. Seeing this, and quickly went over and patted his arm. Commander, don't be so dejected. It's not too late to start getting on the Grand Princess's good side. I'll help you. Nealon took a deep breath, composed himself, and cleared his throat. You're right. The next day, outside the city gates, the morning mist had not yet dispersed. Kano, dressed in a crisp military uniform, waited quietly with a group of subordinates. The wind whipped at his coat, making it flap loudly. Sir, they're here, a subordinate suddenly said, pointing into the distance. At the end of the main road, a white-haired woman was riding a fine horse at a gallop. Though she was old, her back was ramrod straight, and her eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Her every move exuded the valiant air of a seasoned warrior. The horse's hooves clattered steadily on the stone road. Kano hurried forward and bowed slightly. Grandmother, you've arrived. The old woman reined in her horse. She sized up Kano, a faint smile playing on her lips. It seems you're not busy today. You even have time to pick up an old woman like me. There isn't much to do today, Kano said in a flat tone. You still talk like that. The old woman shook her head. And what about your parents? They're packing their bags, preparing to go back. The old woman snorted, her tone tinged with disdain. Are they trying to make a point to me? Weaklings like them never dare to stand up and protect their homeland. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the scene inside the city gates. Has anything special happened in the capital recently? Nothing special, Kano replied. But the old woman stared at him intently, her eyes scrutinizing, as if trying to see right through him. Kano's heart skipped a beat. He asked what's wrong. Nothing. The old woman suddenly smiled, with a hint of satisfaction. It seems you, an outsider, are doing quite well here. Kano hesitated for a moment. Yes, he replied. The people here are fine. His Majesty has also been asking about you recently. That old coot is still alive? The old woman retorted bluntly. The two walked into the city side by side. The old woman rubbed her lower back. After such a long journey, these old bones can't take it anymore. I'll go pay my respects to His Majesty tomorrow. All right, I'll show you the way. Kano replied, slowing his pace to match hers. Meanwhile, Tasha was already dressed. A red formal dress accentuated her growing elegance. Holding an exquisitely wrapped gift box, she said to Lise, everything is ready. Lise, let's go. Inside the carriage, and looked at the strawberry tart in Tasha's hands and asked curiously, Your Highness, did you prepare this especially for the tea party? Tasha nodded with a smile. I heard Marquise Tatari likes desserts too. These are made with the freshest strawberries. They should suit her taste. Goodness, it must have taken a lot of effort to make, and exclaimed. No, It's actually very simple, Tasha said enthusiastically, starting to explain how to make it, and listened with a bewildered expression. The steps didn't sound simple at all, but she still smiled and agreed. I see. Your Highness is indeed an expert on desserts, just as the rumors say. I wouldn't say an expert, just passionate about it, Tasha said, waving her hand. She then asked, and curiously, how did you know I like to make desserts? Did Pavel tell you? What else did he say about me? It wasn't from him, and explained. At the peace banquet with the Nodis elves, the dessert you made amazed everyone. I heard people talking about it afterward. She paused, lowered her head, and said softly, but my brother and I don't really keep in touch. Tasha tilted her head, her eyes full of confusion. And are you and Pavel not on good terms? As soon as she said that, Peternay, who was beside them, couldn't help but let out a chuckle, and gently nudged Peternay with her elbow, but she had a smile on her face. That's not it. She thought for a moment, and explained, Your Highness, no matter how close you are with the Crown Prince, you might not understand. Between siblings, it's mostly a love-hate relationship. Tasha had a moment of realization and couldn't help but laugh. Oh, so that's how it is. Before long, the carriage slowly came to a stop in front of a large, carved iron gate. Behind the gate was a magnificent manor. The vine-entwined pillars exuded elegance. Tasha, inside the carriage, sensed the movement. She said softly, It seems we've arrived, and got out of the carriage first and turned to offer her hand. Tasha took her hand and slowly descended from the carriage, holding her skirt. The Marquise was already waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Tasha, she came forward enthusiastically. Grand Princess. She elegantly lifted her skirt and performed a perfect curtsy, her smile gentle. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you ever so much for gracing us with your presence. Tasha quickly stepped forward and handed over the gift box. You're too kind. I should be the one thanking you for the invitation. This is a strawberry tart I made myself. I hope you like it. The Marquise accepted the gift box with both hands, her eyes full of surprise. Goodness, Your Highness made this yourself? I'm truly honored. She carefully opened the box and looked at the multi-layered dessert adorned with bright red strawberries, exclaiming, This is so exquisitely made. May I share this with everyone during the tea party? Of course. Tasha nodded with a smile. That's wonderful. The Marquise turned to the side to lead the way. My daughter, Natalie, and the other guests are waiting inside. I'll take you in now. The Marquise led Tasha into the party area, smiling and waving. Your Highness, look, my daughter is right. Before she could finish, she turned to look at the party seating, but she saw that it was empty and became flustered. Huh, that's strange. She was just here. She quickly raised her voice and called out, Natalie, come out here. As soon as she finished speaking, a rustling sound came from the nearby bushes. A little girl with short brown hair stood up, holding a ball. Looking a bit embarrassed, she said, Mother, I wasn't running around. Why did you come out of the bushes? And what's with that ball? The Marquise was both angry and anxious. I specifically told them to put away all the toys. She quickly beckoned to her daughter. Come here and greet the Grand Princess. Natalie casually tossed the ball aside and replied, yes. She walked up to Tasha and gave a proper curtsy. Grand Princess, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Natalie Bagrati. Tasha returned the curtsy with a beaming smile. Thank you for inviting me to the tea party. She looked at Natalie's hairstyle and praised her sincerely. Your short hair is so cool. It matches your clothes perfectly. Natalie had clearly never received such a compliment before. She paused for a moment before saying quietly, thank you. Just then, a small boy came forward and bowed respectfully. Greetings to the heart of the Empire, Grand Princess Astasia. I am Grief Fairy from the house of Marquis Haliste. Tasha bent down slightly and waved her hand, her smile gentle. Hello, Gree. You don't have to be so nervous. Just as she was speaking, a young man with yellow hair walked over with a slightly arrogant gait. He said loudly, I didn't expect you to be here. We meet again. Tasha saw who it was, and her eyes lit up. Demit, long time no see. But Demit turned his head away awkwardly. He let out a small huff. Tasha pointed to the seats at the party. Let's sit down and talk, she suggested. It looks like there's a lot of delicious food. After everyone was seated, Tasha took off her cape. She smiled and said, you can just call me Tasha. How could we dare? Gree quickly waved his hands. But Natalie tilted her head and quietly repeated, Tasha. Tasha smiled and nodded at her. The Marquise at the side, however, put on a stern face and stopped her in a low voice. Natalie, you must not be rude to the Grand Princess. She quickly distributed the strawberry tart Tasha had brought to everyone and said apologetically to Tasha, I'm sorry, Your Highness. This child went crazy playing with her ball yesterday. I'm afraid she hasn't quite recovered today. Natalie turned her head away and huffed again. It's all right, Tasha said quickly. After the Marquise finished distributing the cake, she said with a smile, well, you all chat for a bit. I'm going to check on the kitchen. As soon as she left, an awkward silence fell over the party. Tasha thought to herself, this atmosphere is too stiff. I need to find a topic of conversation. Luckily, there was Demit, whom she knew, so she started conversation. Demit, what are you doing here? Demit looked up abruptly, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Then why are you here? I heard the Marquise knows a lot about desserts. I wanted to come and learn. Tasha looked at him, confused. Why are you angry? Don't you like desserts? But if you don't, why did you come? Who says I don't like them? Demit immediately retorted. Then why aren't you eating the strawberry tart? Tasha pressed. I was just about to eat it. It's your fault for talking so much that I haven't had the chance, Demit said. He frowned, picked up his knife, and quickly cut a piece of the strawberry tart. Natalie, at the side, didn't say anything, silently picking up a napkin to wipe her fingers. Then, she unhesitatingly grabbed a piece of the strawberry tart and stuffed a large bite into her mouth. The maids beside the young lady couldn't help but let out a collective gasp, but Natalie paid them no mind. She took a bite and chewed it carefully. Tasha watched from the side, a little surprised. She saw Natalie swallow the first bite, her eyes instantly lighting up. Wow, she exclaimed. This strawberry tart is super delicious. Really? Tasha asked happily. Natalie nodded vigorously. MHM, it's really good. She then stuffed another large bite into her mouth, eating with great enjoyment. Tasha watched her satisfied expression, a warmth spreading quietly in her heart. The light around her is so dazzling. This is the first time someone has expressed their love for my desserts so genuinely. Seeing how much Natalie was enjoying it, she smiled and suggested, then you can have my piece too. Really? Natalie's eyes went wide with anticipation. Of course, why not? Tasha's eyes curved into a smile. I'm more than happy that you like what I made. Your Highness made this herself. Natalie asked in surprise. A member of the royal family, doing a maid's work in the kitchen. Demit suddenly interjected from the side, his tone tinged with disdain. No wonder you kept urging us to eat this strawberry tart. But Tasha wasn't annoyed. She just kept smiling and said, thank you for your concern. I'll be sure to relay what you just said to my grandfather. Grandfather? Demit looked confused. Tasha's smile didn't falter. Yes, the one you keep calling His Majesty. I'll tell him how worried you are about your cousin. Demit's face instantly turned red. He hastily retorted, who's my cousin? Then, like a deflated ball, he turned his head and mumbled, forget it. I'm eating the strawberry tart. Don't talk to me. He speared a piece of the tart and stuffed it into his mouth, chewing a few times. A flash of amazement crossed his eyes. Then, without a word, he began to eat it in big mouthfuls. Time slipped by quietly. The tea party was halfway through. After finishing the desserts, Gree and Natalie ran onto the lawn and started kicking a ball. Tasha and Demit stood to the side, watching. Seeing Demit's complicated expression, Tasha tilted her head. She smiled and asked Demit, doesn't your family usually host tea parties? My father thinks they're meaningless events, Demit said flatly. Tasha nodded to herself. It seems Uncle Marshkin knows full well that his family has no connection to politics. She then asked, what about Ilya? Demit pouted helplessly. He's like a fool. Uncle Burley would never let him host an event like this. He's just a little crybaby. Hey, how can you say that? Tasha frowned. You should respect Ilya's wishes. Why don't you go and help him? What? No way. Demit reacted strongly, taking a step back. When you host your tea party, I'll come and make strawberry tarts for you. They're delicious, right? Tasha coaxed. Demit, like a mouse that had seen a cat, threw out, I said no, and fled the scene in a panic. Tasha watched his retreating back and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Just then, Natalie tiptoed over to her side. She whispered in her ear, Your Highness, do you want to see my secret base? A secret base? Tasha was immediately intrigued. Led by Natalie, the two arrived at a grove of trees. Natalie said seriously, normally, I wouldn't be friends with someone whose soccer skills are worse than mine, but Your Highness, you're an exception. Really? Tasha said, pleasantly surprised. Yeah. Natalie nodded vigorously. You made strawberry tarts especially for us, and you didn't mind my rudeness. You weren't rude at all, Tasha said with a smile. This is the first time anyone has said that. Natalie beamed. They held hands and walked down a small path covered in gravel. Natalie said, I just wanted to show you my secret base. Okay, that sounds like fun, Tasha chirped. As they walked, Natalie suddenly asked a strange question. Your Highness, will you get married in the future too? Tasha was caught off guard by the question, lost her footing, and cried out, ah. Fortunately, Natalie was holding his hand tightly and caught him. Tasha composed himself. Catching his breath, he answered no. I've never thought about it. Could it be that you're getting married, Natalie? No, I'm not getting married, Natalie said firmly. But I know Marquis Heliste wants me to marry Gree. An image of a shy Gree appeared in Tasha's mind. He asked, but you don't want to, right? Gree isn't good at any sports. I find him very boring, Natalie admitted frankly. As they spoke, they walked under a large tree. Natalie said, Your Highness, please wait a moment. Before the words had even left her mouth, she nimbly climbed the tree, before Tasha could even marvel at it. Natalie then jumped down lightly. The movements were fluid and seamless. Tasha exclaimed in amazement. Her athletic ability is so good. No wonder she doesn't want to play with ordinary people. Natalie opened her palm. There were few small fruits. She said with a smile, please try this. Tasha picked one up and put it in his mouth. A sweet and sour taste instantly spread across his tongue. Wow, it smells a bit sour, but it tastes so sweet. He muttered subconsciously, this would definitely be perfect for making wine. Natalie laughed. Dudham, why mother says the same thing. But they're delicious to eat just like this too. Ah, Tasha gave a slightly embarrassed laugh. Before long, the two of them arrived in front of a simple cabin built from wooden planks. Natalie waved with a smile. This is my secret base. Did you build this cabin yourself? Tasha asked, looking around curiously. Actually, the attendants helped build it, Natalie said, scratching her head. She pushed open the wooden door. Please come in and have a look. Don't mind if I do. Tasha followed her into the cabin, his eyes scanning the surroundings. Although it was simple inside, it was tidied up with a certain charm. Tasha exclaimed, wow, it's so quiet and peaceful here. Natalie chuckled. She walked over to a copper stove and touched it with a bit of disdain that MY mother insisted on adding this. She said it gets cold in the woods. I didn't want it originally. This is the first time I've seen a stove like this. Tasha leaned in for a closer look. Then let me light it for you to see. As Natalie spoke, she lit the charcoal inside. Before long, the cabin indeed started to warm up. Natalie, thank you. It warmed up so quickly, Tasha said in pleasant surprise. A trace of pride appeared on Natalie's face. Suddenly, as if remembering something, she shot to her feet. Da-da, that's right. She took a thick notebook from a wooden shelf and handed it to Tasha. Would you like to see this? Sure, what is it? Tasha took the notebook and opened it with Natalie. It's the leaves and seeds I've collected in the forest. Natalie pointed to the specimens inside and explained, there are maple leaves with serrated edges, plump acorns, and a few pine needles that have a fluorescent glow. Tasha's eyes lit up as he looked. Wow, you collected all of these yourself. That's amazing. A little embarrassed by the praise, Natalie scratched her neck, her cheeks slightly red. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Natalie, Tasha looked up at her and said earnestly, in the future, if you make any new discoveries, can you share them with me? I'll bring you strawberry tarts again. Natalie nodded vigorously and said with a beaming smile, okay, I'll definitely share them with you. The setting sun gradually sank into the forest. The whispers of the guards could be heard from outside the cabin. The young lady and His Highness the Grand Prince haven't come out yet. It's about time to head back. The wooden door was pushed open gently. A small hand was waving at them. The guards were puzzled. Is it calling for us? As I walked closer and pushed open the cabin door, a guard was just about to speak. Tasha made a shush gesture at them. Natalie was seen sleeping with her head pillowed on Tasha's lap. Her breathing was even and a faint smile was on her face. Tasha was gently stroking her hair. The scene changes. Natalie is now sound asleep in her bed. The Marquise sat by the bed, muttering helplessly, I thought you had enough fun the day before and would be a bit more settled today. I never expected you to fall asleep leaning on His Highness the Grand Prince. She sighed. Fortunately, His Highness didn't mind. Recalling the earlier scene, the Marquise bowed deeply to Tasha. Your Highness the Grand Prince, I am truly sorry. It's all right. Natalie and I had a lot of fun, Tasha said with a smile, and continued, I was very happy to hear that the Marquise enjoyed the pastries I made. Pastries? The Marquise was taken aback for a moment. Didn't Your Highness bring strawberry tarts today? She quickly realized and quickly played along. You're talking about Tasha's chocolate cake, right? Yes, that's right. Tasha nodded. He tugged at his clothes. There was a small incident at the shop a while ago. I was originally worried. Your good review gave me a lot of encouragement. Thank you. The Marquise understood. So His Highness came for this reason. Back to the present. The Marquise quietly came out of the room and asked the maid beside her. No one has been inside Natalie's cabin before, right? That's right. Everyone else has only seen it from a distance outside, the maid replied. After a pause, the maid asked doubtfully, but His Highness said he made that strawberry tart himself. Is that true? Could it be fake? The Marquise retorted. The maid was about to speak. The Marquise exclaimed with exaggeration. That tart was so delicious it could make you cry. I've never eaten anything so delicious in my entire life. The maid was still somewhat incredulous, but His Highness the Grand Prince is still so young. The Marquise said with conviction, though it's hard to believe. From the way he looked, it didn't seem like he was lying. The maid remarked, for the dignified Grand Prince to be passionate about baking, everyone would find that strange. As if remembering something, the Marquise's expression suddenly changed. She instructed the maid, I heard there was some trouble at the Battistelli school a few days ago. Go and find out what exactly happened. Yes, my lady. The maid replied, bowing respectfully. Meanwhile, the carriage Tasha was in was traveling smoothly on the way back. Inside the carriage, Peternay looked at the exquisite box in Tasha's hands and asked curiously, Your Highness, what is that? These are cookies from Marquise Tattari. She said they're the specialty of a famous dessert shop. Tasha explained with a smile. He then enthusiastically suggested, let's share them, and was about to open the box. Your Highness, you don't have to share with us, and quickly waved her hands, declining, I know, you all worked hard protecting me today. Tasha insisted and said to and please take one for Ivan for me, unable to refuse his kind offer, and had no choice but to accept 2 cookies. She said with a slight bow, thank you, Your Highness.